They're pro athletes, but their habits are like toddlers. They eat like shit, they sleep like shit. They're just genetic outliers. We've just completely lost the plot. We're shooting for optimal. There's no such thing as optimal. Give it the right intensity, no one to push, no one to pull, have a good coach. You still got to show up and do the work. How hard can I truly push before I break?
It's time to sit down, keep it real, and cut the bullshit. Welcome to Table Talk. Dylan Seeley, thank you for being on the podcast.
Pleasure being out here.
Here's where I'm going to jump off with, right? Because this kind of like sums the whole thing up. You are dropped on your head a lot, right? And now you are the owner of Inferno Performance and Rehab.
That's probably the best intro, yeah. I can have.
So let's close that gap a little bit. Your sport background is baseball and rugby. Right. So that much it's easy to put together. People can go listen to other podcasts and you kind of elaborating on all that, but it does play into the context of a lot of the topics that I want to get into. Visual acuity is going to be one of the bigger ones.
Okay.
And the concussions is going to be one as well, which is why I said you were
definitely the expert on that.
A whole bunch because of that. So when was that, the rugby?
Yeah. So embarrassing enough, my first ever concussion was like out of a Tom and Jerry skit where I stepped on a rake. And it was an old school metal wooden rake and it smacked me in the fucking dome. And that was my first ever concussion. And this was probably 16. I remember I was cleaning up some shit in the sheds after baseball and just turned the lights off, took a step and like legit out of a cartoon, stepped on it and smacked the shit out of my head. And so that was the first ever concussion I got. And
so what happened after that? Did you see stars? Did you pass out?
No, it was one of those where you're like, what the fuck just happened? And then you feel a little bit loopy and then you're not really that hungry. And if you try and eat, you're a little nauseous. And back then, it was just go lay in a dark room and hope for the best and it should go away within a few days. And, that works when you're younger. But then as you keep going, I remember I really started to rack them up probably, I don't know, like 5 years later, like towards probably the latter end of the rugby career. And you'd play through, you get a concussion and you'd be a little bit better, but you never felt like you were 100%. And so you just kind of keep playing through it. You come back way sooner than what you probably should. And
so when you were doing that if I go back to my football days, and it happened several times, right? We called it getting your bell rung.
Yep.
Right. So you said, was it still that?
Yeah, it was
perceived that way.
It was some of those. I mean, I had one. So back in the day with rugby, it was very similar to soccer where there is no, if you get substituted, you're out. If you come off the field, it's over. And I remember watching back a video of me. I wish I still had it because it's actually really fucking funny to watch, but I got cheap shotted super late and I got knocked out cold. I mean, it was bad. So the guy absolutely smoked me after I passed the ball and it had been 2 seconds. So I kind of relaxed up a little bit. And apparently if you watch the video, he comes in forearm right to the side of my jaw and then lands full body weight on me. He was a big boy too. And a fight then broke out over top of me because of that cheap shot. And I'm just laying there, just not moving at all. And I finally kind of hear things, but I can't fully open my eyes yet. And I just felt like I'm getting stepped on. I'm like, okay, I'm a little bit with it now, try and get out of the way. So I kind of crawled out from underneath the little squabble that was going on. And I looked like a newborn deer trying to get back into, moving around and everything. But I guess our trainer never spotted it and our coaches never saw it. So as far as everybody else could go, was concerned that I'm normal. And so I get back, they blow the play dead. They kind of start back up. I get back into the play in the defensive line. I made 3 more tackles after that. I couldn't tell you where the fuck I was though, but I made sure I stuck those tackles. And the worst part was I actually had to sit for my athletic training boards 2 days later. So after that game, I was playing in Pittsburgh. I had to drive back to DC that night while having the concussion and then take my boards. I had 1 day to try and cram study. And then the next day I had to go take my boards.
Here's the first question I'm going to have with this is, I remember the one time getting my bell rung and it was, I still played. It was bad to where I'm in the backseat of the car. My parents are driving me home after the game and I'm fucked up. I mean, I'm like shaking and shit. They didn't care. They just left me in the car and they went into some after party and then came back out a couple hours later and you just got your bell rung, whatever it was. And so I get that. Yeah. And if you get hit so hard, you're walking like a deer. And if you were on my team, I'd be laughing at you like a tree.
Yeah.
Right. I understand those, But because the reason I'm saying this is you said that you insinuated that you would keep it from the coaches.
Yeah.
Because you didn't want to get pulled out. I can't even begin to remember the number of times that I was a lineman, a head-on collision, or when I was defensive end more so, to where it wrung me for a second. But I'm not saying shit because you just go back to the huddle and your head's cleared by the next play. I mean, so when we're talking this concussion and say there's a scale, right? I probably had that happen hundreds of times. I can't even begin to count. I'm sure you're the same way.
Yeah.
Like there are a lot of little micro, whatever you want to call them.
We call them repeated head impacts.
Repeated head impacts, right? And then there's the big main thing.
Yeah.
Right. So what's how these defined so I can go on with this conversation?
So we've started to study it a little bit more now. And you have like your traditional like TBI, which we use like a Glasgow coma scale for, essentially like how fucked up are you, how close you are to being in a coma, right? And then we have with the concussion, they're constantly changing the criteria of it just because we don't fully know. I think the most recent was like the Berlin consensus probably a couple of years back. And you just had to meet 2 of, I think it was the 5 criteria. It's been a while since I've read that paper, so don't pull that up on me. But within that, you also have subconcussive impacts, and this is the repeated head impacts. Most people think of soccer like heading a soccer ball. That's not enough to be a concussive force, but it's enough to kind of make us worry a little bit. Like, what's the long-term effects of this? No different than in football. Like you just face mask to face mask or face mask to chest plate. And so those are what we've broken it down into. Like you have your true severe traumatic brain injury, like nasty car accidents or something really crazy happening. And then you have your concussions, which we don't classify as TBIs anymore. And then you have your repeated head impact, which are more so like a subconcussive force. But we're finding repeated head impacts actually have some really long lasting nasty effects that we accumulate because we don't really think it's a big deal, but you're accumulating so many of them throughout the years.
Okay. So if I go back to say all the people I played with, right? So I'm not an exception to the other people I'm playing with because we're all bashing heads, right? This is before rule changes and all this other stuff. I'm sure some of them are fucked up. Most of them aren't.
Yep.
Right. So what predisposes somebody to be more fucked up from that than other ones?
There's certain genetic things, like you can have some genetic polymorphisms that will make you more prone to, say, like having a post-concussive syndrome, or like your level of cardio also plays into this. Your psychological approach, like if you got cheap shotted, you might have a worse concussion than someone who intentionally rammed their head into somebody. So weird shit like that will determine how bad, your symptoms might be. Like if you feel like you're not at fault, like we've studied this, your concussion symptoms are usually worse. With some of these genetic, mutations that go on, like that can also change how people can handle it. The amount of BDNF that you have, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, can also modulate some of these things. That's why I harp very heavily on conditioning, especially aerobic side of things, because that's usually what helps you bounce back a lot quicker. I find that with my athletes that are not as aerobically fit, they come back a lot slower.
All right, because it's where I'm kind of going with this. If we look at the NFL, we know all the documented cases of the people that are really bad.
Yeah.
But we don't know. Maybe they do. Maybe it's just not. What percentage of that is that?
Yeah.
Right? Is it 10%?
It's tough to say. I also, like going to that CTE study, like they were like 100% of the people have CTE. It's because the people that donated their brains thought that they had CTE. So no shit, like think that they're going to have, like they should have CTE. But what I think is we don't see this across many other sports. I mean, if we look at, I was talking to an NFL player about this probably 2 weeks ago. And he goes, with CTE, this is such a big topic, and we want to make sure we stay on top of our health because we don't want to have like any of these crazy things. I'm like, well, if you look at other sports, it's really pro wrestling in NFL that usually have a very bad rap around CTE and like suicidal ideation and all these other things. But what are the psychological factors that go into it? Like, we treat NFL athletes like they're gods. Same thing with, you know, some of the WWE guys. We're pumping them full of drugs. I mean, it's not as much as what it was in the NFL back in the day as it is now, but WWE, it's still the same. And so you take somebody like, was it like an Antonio Brown, right, who is a wide receiver, so think almost like a diva position. So the psychological aspect of that plays a big role into it. Throw in the repeated head impacts. You know, what is like, are these guys staying on top of their blood work? A lot of the time, no, right? Or they have doctors that are just pulling the bare minimum. So we're looking at, you know, like, what's their testosterone at? What's the like vitamin D status? What are all these other little things that can really play a big omega status? What are all these little things that can play a big role in brain health? And a lot of these guys, I mean, they're pro athletes, but their habits are like toddlers. Like, they eat like shit, they sleep like shit. They're just genetic outliers. Like, that's why they play pro sport. So when we factor all this in, it's like, you can see why, because if you look at, say, like soccer or hockey, I mean, how many people can name you pro athlete, unless they're really into that sport? How many people are naming a pro athlete in the MLS on the regular, if you just go out into the general public or into, you know, hockey? So you don't really see that nearly as much. I will say, on the international scene, rugby has like suicide is fairly prevalent within, I would say, rugby a little bit more often. Mostly because I've also worked with a lot of athletes like out of New Zealand, so you'll see like heightened rates of some of that stuff too. But again, it goes back into like concussion and everything else, but it's also like, where is your where in the world do you live, right? Because vitamin D exposure as well. I'm not saying like vitamin D is going to magically like cure your concussion and, you know, reduce your suicidal ideation, but like seasonal affective disorder is a thing. And so if you live in a place where you're not getting a whole lot of sun, or you're sheltering yourself from the sun a whole lot, because also that's one of the habits, is like, you want a dark room when you have concussions. So you're going to avoid like the very thing that could be helping you. And so that's why people tend to spiral a lot more. We call that cocoon therapy, where you just, you know, you go in a dark room and you don't do anything. And we've actually found, when we study it, this prolongs your concussion symptoms. Like, the best thing to do is just in a controlled manner, get back into things, whether it's some low level cardio, going on walks outside, whatever. But the problem is a lot of the advice that we were given was really shit back in the days. It was like, just go sit in a dark room, get rid of all the lights, and just, you know, hope for the best. But when you take a step back and you look at it from a global health perspective, that makes no fucking sense. You're going to end up way more depressed being in a dark room, removed from all the things that you love. And then you're going to be far more biased to then, you know, search for something that's going to give you meaning, which a lot of people, just, if they're already taking prescription drugs because they're beat up playing the sport, they're probably just going to take more. They're just going to fuck up their psyche. They're just going to make them do dumb shit. And I think it's such a complex topic, and people are just looking for like, oh, it's the CTE that's fucking up. And it's like, really? Because how many people out there probably have a little bit of a fucked up brain from, like you talked about, like from playing sports, and they're totally fine. Like, why is this?
Well, on the flip side of this, maybe they're at that higher level because they are a little fucked up.
Yeah, that too.
Right. So, I mean, that plays into it. And then the other variable I would see, if they're at that higher level, then they're no longer playing, and that's what they've done their whole life. Their identity,
the meaning of it,
is
huge.
It's their whole identity was just stripped away.
Yeah. And
then there's nothing. There's a lot of variables.
Yeah.
Was it your concussions that got you looking into this deeper?
Yeah, like, I've always questioned stuff. I'm never big on following orders. So I'm always trying to find out the answer for myself on things. And when people give you, it's just this because of that, usually it's a little bit more complex than that. So that's what got me into studying it. What got me into like a lot of the concussion work was just the fact that the game sped up so much when I was trying to play that I was making dumb decisions left and right. And it didn't make any sense. Like, I'd go back and I'd watch film and I'd shit the bed and make a pass way too early because I thought someone was from me to you, and realistically they were from me to that wall behind us. It was my visual perception of things that were totally fucked, and that was leading to the wrong decisions, and then everything just kind of compounds from there.
What inspired you to go into the strength conditioning, rehab, chiropractic? I mean, you're in a lot of spaces.
Yeah.
You know, so
Jack of all trades, master of none.
Well, accelerated performance. How's that?
I guess yeah. Witch doctor is usually what people refer to me as. So initially, all I wanted to do was train athletes. I got started with Justin Kavanaugh when I was 18. And
What inspired that though?
dumb luck. I was home. So I hated school. I was very gifted, but I didn't really give a shit about school. So
Oh, you're one of them fuckheads.
I was. So I would go to school and I'd be like, I really don't want to be here. Like I just went to school to play sports. But the problem is I also have a big problem with authority. So I had no problem telling a coach to fuck off, which usually doesn't work very well. And
so when did that start?
being a dickhead, probably since I was a kid. You could ask my parents; they'll probably confirm that for sure. But I would say I was a very good baseball player growing up, and I came from a family like my cousin was drafted by the Texas Rangers. His brother played collegiate soccer. I had on the other side of my family was college athletes, so it's like I think there is a stat where if at least one of your parents was a college athlete or you have family members a college athlete, the rate of you being a college athlete, I think, is like above 50%. That's pretty fucking high. So
I'm more interested in this anti-authority type thing because to me, there was like two types of kids in kindergarten or first grade. There's when the teacher says, everybody get in line. There's like the kids that all get in line. Then there's the other kid that's like, I ain't fucking doing what.
That was probably me.
And I don't know where that all stems from, but it seems to be those, because that was me. I'm like, I don't want to do it just simply because you just asked me to do it.
I feel like it's most entrepreneurs. That's why we became entrepreneurs. We just didn't want to deal with
I'm like, if everybody just went up and got in line, I'd probably go. But because you said.
Exactly. That happens all the time. And so, yeah, if it's not my own original thought, I don't want to hear it. But yeah, so that became a thing. And so I wanted to play college sports. And I remember I went to this camp when I was, I don't know, probably going into my freshman year, and I had a really good showing at this camp. And then started my junior, I think I got kicked off the baseball team probably by like my sophomore year. It did not last very long. And so by started junior year, I get all these recruiting letters flowing in. And I'm like, well, fuck, I probably should, try to get back to playing baseball. And so, but the problem is still had that problem with authority. And so that just it didn't pan out very well. And so the only reason I went to school was really just to play sports. Well, now I'm not playing sports. The other reason was I was in kind of like a hybrid between just your standard classes and then trade school. So I'd go work on cars for like a 3-hour block out of the day. And I loved that. And I'm like, okay, maybe I'll just be a mechanic. I really enjoy this stuff. And so I'm doing all that stuff. And then I have another person talk to me about like, hey, you'd be actually a perfect fit for going into the military, because the military recruiters were after us constantly in school. And I'm like, okay, maybe that's a thing. And so I have so many, options now that I'm almost like overwhelmed. I don't know which one to pick. And I was like, I started to fall in love with working out a little bit more because like I came across your website. It was you and T Nation. Those were the only things back in the day. And so I was like, well, I'm finding I have a big interest in this now. It's like, okay, I discovered who Poliquin was. Now I'm trying to, do GBT and all this other shit as like a 15, 16-year-old. And I'm falling in love with this process. And I'm like, okay, maybe I can actually, go to school for this. And I'm like, well, I know I'm probably not getting back onto the baseball team. Let me go the JUCO route and then just, walk on, play there, and then go to a bigger, D1 school that I got recruited by earlier. And I go into that, and then I realized I really don't like baseball anymore because I hadn't played it in a couple of years. And I also still hate school, right? And because I'm like, none of this shit applies to me. And I remember for like my 18th birthday, all I wanted was a exercise physiology textbook. My parents were like, why? Because you don't really give a shit about school, but whatever, we'll give it to you. And so I was reading that book like religiously. I mean, I was studying everything from like a college standpoint of exercise physiology to the point where it was like Goodwill Hunting, because my homeroom was an AP bio teacher. And again, like I never went to homeroom. So like the one time I showed up, she was kind of like, one, who are you? But then there's an equation on the board, which is like stupidly simple of just about like ATP, but that's what they were going over this day in their AP bio class. And I went up and I just, filled in the rest of it. And she looks at me like, what the fuck is going on? And I looked at her and I'm like, I'm not dumb. I just don't give a shit. And I think so many people are like that. It's just not fun for them. It's not appealing. So they just stop trying.
Yeah.
I'm sure you ran into the same thing. And so from there, again, going back into the JUCO route, go to JUCO. I'm like, I don't even want to be here. I don't enjoy any of this. I don't enjoy school. I'm like, let me just drop out, go military, go whatever. But at the time I was also watching rugby a lot, and I always wanted to play rugby, but rugby always coincided with baseball season. And so I never had a chance to play it. But my best friend growing up, his dad actually played rugby for Samoa, like phenomenal rugby player. And so when I came back, I had this like little stretch where I'm like, I'm just going to play some rugby. And then I really love working out. Let me just find a um, place to do an internship with. And that's how I got hooked up with Cav. And I was working with him and then playing rugby, and I was like, I'm actually really good at rugby. And so then I started to get offers from there, and I'm like, well, okay, let me do that. Let me still work for Cav, and then I can also just go study exercise science. Like, this is a perfect blend. The school that I got recruited by didn't have exercise science; it had athletic training, which actually was probably for the best because it was like a bit of the exercise side of things and the medical side of things.
Mhm.
So I did all that, and I remember it was towards the latter, going into the summer of my senior year. I told Cav, I'm like, he asked me, "What's your plan?" And I told him, I just want to come back here and work. I just want to train athletes. I love this shit. I could do this all day long. And he goes, absolutely fucking not. You're going to go get a doctorate. You're not going to waste your time being here when you have the potential to be something else. And so then I had to look around, figure out what I wanted to do. Didn't really know what I wanted to do. So I'm like, what about exercise physiology? So I'm looking at some of these labs and I'm like, awesome, but they're really fucking expensive. And then I have to do all these extra courses. And I'm like, I'd probably not be able to do that. So let me go the physical therapy route. Well, I didn't realize when you try to apply to physical therapy school, you apply to an agency. The agency then sends off your transcripts to the school. So I had to pay the middleman. And by the time the middleman sent all my shit off, the deadlines were gone. I missed them. So now I'm fucked. I have nothing that I'm that I'm going back to at this point. And I remember my rugby coach at the time told me, he's like, hey, just go meet up with this chiropractor. He might have something for you. And he was telling me, he's like, hey, we actually give out scholarships to play rugby at chiropractic school. I'm like, okay, perfect. I've never been to a chiropractor in my life. So I'm like, okay, cool. I just want to keep playing sports. And so I took that scholarship, went out there, went to school, did all that stuff. And so that's how I ended up a chiropractor. It was just pure dumb luck. Like, I always just wanted to keep playing sports. But what's interesting too is I actually broke my back while in school. So my first major injury was the fact that I blew through the labrum in my shoulder, and I'm like, okay, this is probably my career. I think this was start of like junior year. I'm like, I'm kind of fucked. I don't think this thing's going to come back because the surgeon really fucked it up. And that's a whole nother topic we could get into of how the team medical doctors for sports organizations are actually not usually the best. They just pay to be the team doctor, which I found that out the hard way. And so I got super fucked up on that. And then from there, I got back, healed back, kept trying to play, and I got cheap shotted in a match, knees folded to chest, cracked a couple ribs, but I actually fucked my low back up pretty good. And I didn't realize it. And we had a team lift on Monday or Tuesday that week. And so when I came back, I was doing deadlifts. I'm like, it feels a little bit funny, whatever. Went to go do glute ham raise, and I was really fighting the last rep. And I arched it, and I just felt, and I go, I'm fucked. I know it's bad. And I try to get back onto the bar. I'm like, I can't wedge into position to grab the bar. I'm like, something's up. But I'm like, I'm going to keep training, whatever. I'll just go do supine hamstring curls or prone. So I go, and it's one of those machines that's kind of tilted up when you lay down on it. So your ass is a little bit higher up in the air.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that must have just opened the fracture site a little bit because I broke my back. And so when I tried to curl. I couldn't move my legs. I couldn't get off the machine. I had to have my teammates pull me off of it. I'm like, I'm stuck. Something's seriously fucked up here. And so they pulled me to the side and they were like, we don't really know what to do with you on this. And, I think that might be kind of the end of the career. And so from there, I really like stopped playing, and I'm like,
How'd you get out of the gym?
They had to like drag my ass out of there, and then I could kind of walk myself up a little bit on my thighs. And then I just had to have like someone's arm out, and I'm pretty much using them as a walker.
Then how did you go about getting back to some sort of homeostasis? Because I assume you didn't get surgery, right?
No, I didn't get the surgery. But what was weird is like I felt okay like the following morning. I just went back to my dorm, laid in my bed pretty much all day, and then I felt okay to walk and to move and do everything else. I just couldn't run or lift for probably like a month. I didn't feel great. And at that point, this was end of junior year going into senior year of college, because at the time I was also playing rugby league, and my coach was like, hey, you're not totally shit at this. Let me take you back to Australia with me, and then you can play there, and we can try to at least get you to, the US national team that way. And I was super pumped because like, okay, I'm going to go live in Australia. I'm going to go play there. I'm going to go learn a lot more. So that way I can at least try and have a better shot at making the national team here. But then obviously that derailed it real quick.
We live in some crazy times right now where there's not a day that I don't go on the internet and I see some BS crap about this research study or this research study. This isn't new. I've been in this industry for 4 decades. One thing that's helped me is 8 years ago, the mass research review started and became a godsend. The mass research team are professional researchers that are also meatheads. So they've done this great job of being able to take all these topics and put them into this research review that I get every month. I'm excited to partner with them. I spoke with Eric Helms about this on the podcast. It's simple, it's easy. They're offering a 20% discount to all podcast listeners. The code is elitefts20. When you join, you get the research review, which is going to be sent to you every single month. That has 7 to 9 articles in there. The archive, which is 1,500 articles, thousands of videos. Just head over to massresearchreview.com and use the code elitefts20. The link will be in the description.
Well, let's go back to this kind of what happened here, because this is, I don't want to say it's a regular occurrence, but it's an occurrence that you see, right?
It is.
Where the way I would describe a situation like that would be, I threw my back out.
Yep.
Right. And I did that several times. I did learn how to not do it as frequently. And my escape route from that, I don't even know if I should say this, but actually you're here, so I probably can say it and still have it kind of be like, I don't suggest anybody doing this, right? Yeah. But if it happened on like a squat day or a max effort day, and it normally didn't happen in the training, it normally happened with something dumb, like trying to grab a dime, just something stupid like that. Then my sense is that it audibles, but it definitely feels like it in your body, right?
Oh yeah.
And I'm explaining probably what people come to you and say.
Yeah,
right?
The sound is amplified. It's like when you crack your own knuckle, or your own neck. It sounds so loud, but if you ask somebody, like, I didn't really hear.
Then it's like, oh fuck, you can't breathe, right? And then the way I would always kind of go about that from that point was I had to get blood into it. Yeah. So actually I had to let it chill first. Yeah. So it's like, go home, lay on ice or whatever the fuck you're going to do. Just let it chill out for 3 or 4 hours. And then get moving, where I'd start with walking. And then the one stupid protocol that I ended with, because I was a trainer at the time, is if I could get access to a Smith machine, this is going to sound stupid, but if not, a power rack would work with just a bar. And I would set it up to do a deadlift, but only in the very, very top, where I could move and it not take breath out of me. And I just do 15, 20 reps. And I come back like an hour later and slowly I would just chip it down. And then by Friday, I'm fucking fine. Yeah. But I'm not, right? But in my head, I'm fine because now I can train. Nothing hurts. Everything's good to go. Yeah. Right. And I think this is kind of the process in one way or another, that people who think they figured it out, think they figured it out because you put blood in there, you get it moving. You brace a little bit harder, the next time you come. In some ways, I think for a lot of strength athletes, this is good to happen a couple times because you figure out a couple things. You figure out how to brace better, right? And you also figure out how to move, because when your back's fucked up, when you stand up out of a chair, you're being very intentional on how you stand up from a chair, how you get out of bed. You're not, how you sleep, all these things, which is fucked up, right? Because you're hurt.
You become hyper aware of it.
You become hyper aware because anything you do outside of that guardrails hurts. Yeah. But then when it starts to feel better, they go back to doing all the fucked up shit again. Right. Yeah. And then it will happen again.
Yeah. And it keeps triggering it. It's almost like your alarm system gets a little bit stronger, where like stuff that usually wouldn't set you off. So imagine you're in a prison yard and you use that spotlight only for prisoners. Now, if a bunny rabbit runs across the yard, that spotlight goes on. And so it's triggering it to say like, oh, this is dangerous.
All right. So here's the takeaway I was kind of going with that. You're younger, so you can kind of get away with this stuff, right? Yeah. Where the more times this happens, you're not going to be able to get away with it.
It gets harder because that threshold goes lower and lower because that spotlight gets bigger and bigger. And now, like, if a blade of grass moves in the wind, that spotlight hits it.
So was it the movement, or was it you your conditioning was in a position that made that movement become acute.
I would say it was a fact. I was fatigued from the game, and so that doesn't help. Like I'm in college, so I was probably out drinking all weekend, and then having to hit a team lift Monday morning, and then throw in the fact it's like, okay, I'm getting pretty close to failure on some of these deadlifts, and then I'm immediately supersetting it into glute ham raise. Like I'm already in a bad position to where my hammies are tired, and now my hammies are not going to be pulling me up out of that glute ham raise. It's just going to be me arching the shit out of my back to pull myself back up. So it's a recipe for disaster. And that's essentially what put me into it.
So after that first one, then how often did you have reoccurrences?
Fairly frequently. And the reason is because, so we went and got an x-ray. An x-ray won't really show anything unless it's really fucked up. And that is what I learned later on in school. So we grade spondies. So it's called like a spondylolisthesis, where the facets, how the bones stack up on each other, you can fracture that, and then they start to move piece by piece and further away. And if you have a grade 1, like you're not really seeing that if it's not like past, like say like a, grade 2, 3, 4, as they start to move separate further and further off.
Now, do you have to have a baseline before this?
Not necessarily, because it's essentially like, imagine if you had, like the cans are kind of stacked like that. It's just how much further off is it from the other ones. And so the x-ray, mine wasn't bad enough to where it showed up on an x-ray, but I was getting weird symptoms with it. So then we would go to the team doc, and then we get the MRI. Well, the guy who read the MRI fucking sucked at what he did. He's like, oh, it's totally fine. I don't really see anything. But I kept having these symptoms, and I had just signed my scholarship to go play at that chiropractic school. So I can't tell that my back's fucked and I can't hardly move, or I can't jog, and that it's painful to lift, or whatever it might be. I'm like, I still have to train. I got to find ways around it, which is what you just talked about. It's like, you're going to find ways to get blood in, blood out, find a way to train it, try and make it as stable as possible. But the issue that got into me was running. So when we would run, it's called a beep test, where it's really just like a measure of cardio, and you run from one line to the next, try and get there before the beep. Well, I would go, and then after, usually around like, I think for me it was like 15.1 on the beep test, my back would lock up. I would get such a nasty pump in the erectors, I couldn't lift my legs anymore. And it was because that bone was unstable. And the more that I ran, the more the supporting musculature got fatigued. So my erectors took over and they clamped it down, but it was clamped down hard enough to where my psoas would lock up too. And I couldn't lift my legs. So I would just be running, and then all of a sudden I'd fall flat on my face. And I would say, leave me for like 3 minutes, the pump will go away, and then I can get up and practice, right? And it's not a healthy thing, but it's just, you just get used to it after a while. And so I went to Serrano, and Serrano read the MRI. He was like, yeah, right there, the fracture, it's clear as day. He's like, no wonder it hurts all the fucking time. But I just had to keep playing through it, and I couldn't really tell anybody about it because I didn't want my scholarship to be taken away. And I want to say, after I graduated school, I took a course, and it was going over some research from McGill, and he had actually found that within the powerlifters, as you start to get a pump on the erector, you can, the veins that are around, the veins and arteries around like the spinal cord don't have valves. So if you get too much of a pressure buildup, it engorges and then can press around that spinal nerve, and then you don't have the ability to leverage that. So it's real transient. You wouldn't see that on an MRI unless you made them squat and then go immediately take the MRI. And so that's also the issue we run into with MRIs. It's a static image. It doesn't really, unless you're super fucked up, I can pick it up right away. But there's plenty of people who have pain, who have, whatever else is going on. And they're like, I got symptoms going down my legs, because that's what I had. And it would be, sometimes one leg, sometimes the other. Everybody was really confused about it. And, you send them for the MRI, and they're like, there's not much here to see. Well, because my back isn't pumped right now. But if you have me go run and then you would have taken the MRI, you would have seen it clear as day. And so that also fucks with people's heads, because now they're telling you, well, it's all in your head, because that's what the team doc told me.
Yeah.
It's all in your head. Well, no, I'm clearly experiencing this. You can see me collapse when I run, but now it's all in your head.
Well, the other thing with that, because I've been in those discussions with doctors, is you're there because it's fucked up, and it's fucked up.
Yeah.
Then they're asking you to explain the symptoms while you're not symptomatic.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, let me go do the shit that makes it bad.
Yeah.
Then I can tell you. Right now, like the pain scale and all that, like right now it's not pumped, it's not bothering me.
Yeah.
But I'm here because I know it will be.
Yeah.
Right.
Be here otherwise.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Then it
And they don't take you. That's the thing that I think pisses off most people is they just don't take you seriously after that. But it's also a lot of times they've never been put in that position to where, because a lot of times people are coming in because they're trying to be proactive. Like we're coming in because we're reactive. We're not coming in just because it's like something small. We're like, whether it's me or you, like coming in because I can't move my fucking leg. Like, and I'll still try and play through that, just like you're going to try and still lift through that. Like, I don't give a shit. Tape it up, do whatever you got to do. But if I'm here, something is seriously fucked up. It's like when a farmer comes to the ER, like, get the OR ready. Like, there's probably going to be a surgery. They're not coming in unless they're fucking dying because it's really hard to get a farmer off the fields. And I think that's just such a big disconnect that's not talked enough about unless you come from like a sports background or like whatever else. Or, just coming from a hard-nosed background, when people are coming into you, it's almost like you kind of vet them mentally. Because a lot of times those doctors are just getting pussies for the most part. They're coming in like, coming in for stuff that's really not a big deal at all.
Yeah.
And then they get someone like me or you who's willing to almost like kill themselves to get what we want. And
well, it's weird because if your pain tolerance is higher, right? And they're like, well, where's it hurt? It's like, well, fucking everywhere.
Yeah.
It's like, nowhere. It's just always a weird ass conversation.
Yeah.
Unless it's tore off. Like if it's tore off, then,
yeah.
That's the only thing I really kind of saw them for is like, is the tendon attached or is it not? Like, cause if it's still attached, I'm fucking fine. See you later. If it's not, then just let me know that. Right.
Yeah.
But technology is way better and a lot of doctors are way better now that if one of the game changers just for me over the past decade or so, whenever ultrasound came in, like when you can go in and see what this actually is while it's moving, is a game changer. It's like, okay, the tendon, because again, for me, it's like the tendon's still there. The muscle's tore, whatever. I don't care. It'll be disformed. I don't give a shit. It changes if the tendon's detached, we gotta have a different conversation, right?
Exactly. And I think that's the issue we run into with a lot of the imaging. It's like binary, it's there or it's not. But also a lot of imaging is left up to interpretation. I can't tell you how many times I've sent somebody to radiology for an image and they come back and they're like, oh yeah, everything's fine. And I'm like, there's a fucking bone that's fractured there. So I think that's what we also forget. There's a lot of human error within radiology. And so unless like you have a doctor that's also reading your scans and they're not relying on the radiologist, that makes a big deal. Like Serrano always loves to tell this story about, he sent somebody in for an MRI and they were like, on the thing, it was like the ovaries are intact. It was a fucking guy. Like they're not going to have ovaries. So he called up the radiologist. She's like, what the fuck are you talking about? There's no ovaries on this scan. But they're ripping through MRIs, X-rays, like that. It's so fast that like, of course they're going to miss shit.
So do you treat the image or do you treat the symptoms?
A bit of both, I would say. Like I want to respect what's on the image, but I also realize the image doesn't necessarily define like what's going on. Like for instance, I've ripped my like one of my hamstrings off the bone, but I can still do hamstring work. Right? So you can still do all the shit you want to do. That gets into the argument of like, does structure dictate function? Right. That's a real old school thing, like from osteopathy or from, balance training and all that stuff. And it's like, no, not really. Cause there's a lot of people with a torn rotator cuff that have no idea they have a torn rotator cuff. I think there's a paper that just came out and looked at people over 40 years old. And I think it was like 90% of them had some type of abnormality within the rotator cuff, but not everybody had rotator cuff pain. And so the structure doesn't always dictate the function, but if the symptoms match up with the structure, then we really need to pay attention.
All right. So now if you're looking at it, would you call it a patient or client? What do you?
Just patient.
Patient.
Person.
So if you're looking at a person, that's my better example, right? If you're looking at a person and you see that, right? Say a torn rotator cuff has been torn for who knows how long.
Yeah.
There's something's compensating.
Yeah.
To be able to do that. So when you're looking at that person, are you looking to see obviously what's doing the compensation of that, but what's being ill affected because of that compensation?
Yeah. So I'm looking at a couple different things. I'm looking at, how long has this been an issue? What does the structure of that area look like? Is there more bone laid down inside now because of it? Is the tendons, retracted? Are they still there? How much of it is torn? Can you even fire that area the way that you want to? And then is the compensation, if I take away that compensation, is it going to fuck up the structure more? And I think I've made that mistake early on where like I get a powerlifters are notorious for having very fucked up hips, right? It's just part of the sport. And to have a truly healthy hip, you need a good amount of internal rotation. When you continually squat heavy, drive your knees out, you're going into more external rotation. And one of the side effects of that is laying more bone down in the hip to almost, it's just an adaptation that goes on. So we call it femoral acetabular impingement, where I start to lay down so much bone in the hip that it impinges on my hip and I can't drive it inside. Otherwise it feels like it's hitting a brick wall and it's pinchy and it's painful. Usually that is like what leads to getting a hip replacement down the road. Well, if you don't respect the structure of it, like say it's there and I'm, new grad coming out of school and I'm like, oh, we need to get this hip healthy. We need to get all this internal rotation back. If there's no internal rotation left to give and I try to get you it, I'm going to fuck that hip up more. So I might just train you harder into your compensation because I know it's going to keep it together better. It's not necessarily the best long-term play, but I can at least delay surgery for a longer period of time.
No, it's a great point because I had my bench fucked up once because of a situation like you're talking about. Somebody trying to fix a compensation pattern that was there because of all the shit that was fucked up to begin with. So all the work was done to be able to do that. And then my bench sucked.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, by a lot, like 75 pounds off, just a lot. And it's like, fuck you, I'm not doing this anymore. Then back. Same thing with the squat. Same thing. And are there long-term consequences? Yes. Yeah. I'm living proof of that, but the person in that moment's just giving a shit about the performance.
That's the biggest thing I think people neglect. So I kind of look at things from like a Venn diagram. I have aesthetics, performance, and health. And I tell people you can pick two. You can't pick three because that's bullshit. You're not going to have all three at once. Just pick two. Usually early on in your career, like it's aesthetics and performance. I need to look good and play good. On the latter end of my career, it's feel good and play good. So health and performance. And then once I'm completely done with my career, then I can look good and feel good. So health and aesthetics. And I think too many people, like from a clinician standpoint, because we're so health driven, it's usually performance and health. But like performance is inherently unhealthy. And so if I try to push you too hard to health, your performance might suffer because of that. And if your performance suffer, you're sure as fuck not coming back to see me.
Yeah, that's an interesting conversation because if I'm looking in that from being through all that experience, looking back, had it been caught earlier, then I'd be okay with a couple years.
And that's the honest conversation you have to have with somebody. And I tell that with people all the time. I say, okay, like I can fix this, but here's potential repercussions of this. Like your bench might suck for however many months. Like, are you willing to deal with that? Here's, if I don't fix it, here's what might happen. I can't guarantee that it'll happen. Like you might need a shoulder replacement or whatever down the road. And so if you just have an honest conversation, but you need someone who at least has worked with somebody to understand the consequences of both sides. I think that's the biggest hang up is most people don't understand the consequences of both sides.
Well, they don't. I mean, that's why you're so rare. That's why you're sitting here now. It's because you understand the consequences of both sides and can have those conversations where so many don't. And why do you think that is? Do you think it's because you have that sport background and that mindset background?
Yeah, I think it's, obviously playing sports tends to help a lot because you understand the performance side of things, but I also think just training athletes. I think you really understand sport performance if you train athletes. And so if you combine that with the health side of things, then you get a much clearer picture of what's going on. But if I only come from health and I don't understand performance, like I'm screwed. But then that's also like you have trainers like that are strictly performance, but they don't understand enough about the health side of things, and then they fuck people up.
Yes.
And so I think it's super beneficial to learn both, to know when it's almost like a sliding scale. Like, am I 80% performance here and then 20% health, or does it need to flip, or what's going on? And I think by just being around the performance side of thing of more being comfortable with pushing it, because I always tell people it's like the, oh God, I tell a story all the time and now I'm forgetting it, but in like Greek mythology, fucking forgetting his name, but the story is about just flying close to the sun, right? And I fly so close to the sun that I burn up and disintegrate, right? And I tell people, my job is to get you to fly as close to that sun as humanly possible without catching on fire. You might catch a sunburn and that's okay because I can fix that, but I can't have you catch on fire. And that is a perfect summary of performance and health and pulling back. Like, how close can I let you get to that sun because that's your performance? But at the same time, I can't let you catch on fire, so I might have to pull you back.
Yes.
And I can fix that sunburn though. So I tell people, like, I'm okay with you sending it and get a little bit fucked up here and there because I know what to do and I can fix that right away. But we're never going to get you back faster than what you're anticipated if we don't push it.
I want to take a second to throw a quick shout out to my friends over at Mastonomics. They have some of the greatest t-shirts. Their memes are incredible. Their YouTube gym tours are great. These drink spotter things, I got about 7 of them out here. Snap them on power racks, put smelling salts in it, drinks. I think they hold up to 10 pounds, or they have different sizes of these. These are great. They made coasters out of stall mats, which is amazing. But what I really wanted to let you know is to go check out gymradar.com. They launched a website that's going to help people find home gyms that they can train at, and to be able to put your own home gym on there and not only be able to find where it is, but see what they actually have. And it's also great for product reviews because people are putting the products that they have in this Gym Radar. Just go check it out. It's great. So it's www.gymradar.com. And also check out Mastonomics. Check out their website, check out their Instagram. The memes are great. And check out their YouTube.
How many of the athletes that you're working with know that? Because I agree with what you're saying during certain phases of training.
Yeah.
During other phases of training, they shouldn't be close to the sun at all.
Exactly. And I'm with that. Like if we're, for instance, like hockey is pretty much if you got knocked out of the playoffs, if you're not making it to the playoffs, season's done. Right. And so now is not the time to be doing dumb shit. Now is the time to be fixing all the dumb shit that we did throughout the season.
Now, are most of the athletes that you're seeing, do they get that?
They understand that because they're also feeling beat up too. Like they don't want to go into a heavy block of training. So I'm like, now is the perfect time to like fix a lot of the shit up, like do the small movements, do the boring shit that you know you don't like to do, but you probably should do. And then as we get closer into the season, like now we can start to push the training harder and harder as we get closer. And then when you're in season, it's like a delicate balance between the two.
That story you were thinking of is Icarus.
Icarus, yeah,
that guy.
Perfect. Yeah, that's why we keep him around. But I think that's just an important conversation to have. But again, if you've never trained athletes to get them prepped for a sport, you would never know when to push and pull. And that's the problem that a lot of doctors have is they don't know when to push or pull. Do I push this athlete harder? Do I pull them back from their sport?
Mm-hmm.
And also like you have to let them know risk reward. Like I had an athlete who I think it was going to be, so it's high school football, it's playoff season. And one of the coaches that was recruiting him was coming to the game. Well, he fucked up his Achilles pretty good, right, leading up to this point. And for him, this is his only way out.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, there is big risk with this, but we can at least try to mitigate this risk. And I'm telling you, I'm like, you're probably going to have this amount of snaps before it starts to feel like shit. So make it count, right? And we're doing all the shit we can to get him back within a week. And like realistically, people would have sat him out for probably 3 weeks or so at this point. And I get him back in 4 days. But I know I'm like, hey, you're not going to be 100%. But just, take this into account. And I also have this conversation with his parents. I'm like, hey, here's what could happen repercussion-wise. Like, he could pop his Achilles. He could be out for 6 to 9 months because of that. But he's like, I really need this scholarship. And this coach is like heavily after me. They just want to see a good game. Like, this is the 3rd time they've visited him. They're very interested in him. I was like, okay, so we did all this shit. I got him, get in, get out type of thing. He played the first half, and I think he racked up like 180 yards of rushing, and then they sat him second half. And he got a scholarship. And so that's a delicate balance. Could shit have gone sideways? Yeah, absolutely. But that's why you really need to be honest about the risk of what you're doing. And I think most practitioners are very afraid to have that. Like I just had an Ohio State football player I saw yesterday who had a grade 2 hamstring tear and wants to play in the spring game. And I'm like, okay, like what's risk benefit of this? What are we trying to get out of here? Like, where are you out on the depth chart? What does your coach say? Like, so the decision-making is far more in depth than just like, okay, what's the image tell me? Like, I need to know what the athletes tell me. I need to know what the coach is telling me. I need to know like where they're at on the depth chart. How important is this game? How much money is on the line? With pro athletes, they want the game check. And so that's also going to, differentiate how you would train them versus or like rehab them versus like the 50-year-old lady coming in from a hip replacement, who's just enjoying her life. And the problem is everybody just has this blanket approach. I feel like when you go to the doctor, it's, you get the same protocol as the next person to you.
Have you felt that pressure yet? And by that, I mean, the more patients you get, the more popular you get, obviously your revenue is generated by the more people you see.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't think a lot of doctors are doing this intentionally from the jump. I think it happens slowly over a period of time.
Yeah.
Right. Because you have to pay insurance. There's all these fucking things that you have to pay that people don't know about because they don't understand that whole business thing.
Right.
Right. So then they end up being that way. Now, I think at some point in time, they might think, oh, fuck, I don't like this.
Yeah.
Then in hindsight, they'll just switch and go private pay. They find different ways to be able to get out of it.
Yeah.
But am I correct in that assessment of this is kind of how it happens?
Yeah, I think that I spent probably 4 years taking insurance because I worked under a different clinic, and it was great because it's like you need to learn how business works. You need to learn how to treat people. You need to learn how to talk to people. And so when I finally got good at a lot of that stuff, I felt a little bit more confident, and I had actually spoke at the Swiss event that you guys put on, and someone came up to me after the talk and they're like, all right, what's the name of your company? I'm like, I don't have a company. They're like, if you're speaking up here, you should probably have your own company, do your own thing. And so at that moment I went back and I told my boss the next day, it's like, hey, I'm going to be out of here in 6 months. Like I'm opening up my own place, doing my own thing. And so I switched over to private pay, but like you talk about, now the money isn't guaranteed. Like you are very results driven in what you have to do. And so now there's a lot of pressure on you. And I think the pressure does get to people sometimes where they rush them back a little bit too quickly, and it becomes a very fine balance. But you still have to see a lot of people to determine that balance. And that's why I think, starting out in that, insurance model and working for somebody else for 4 years allowed me to dictate that balance. And then I felt comfortable enough. Okay, I can go on my own. I can do all that shit. I know when to push, when to pull. And you're always refining stuff. Like I'm always learning things, always trying to find the new edge of stuff and then incorporate that into practice. But yeah, I think some doctors are kind of going back and forth on that. Like they see the benefit of it, but then it's also like a business. It's a jump to go, cash to, or insurance to cash. And that's a terrifying thing for a lot of people because now it's almost like you have to sell yourself and do all this businessy stuff. And it usually diverges. You either become just a very, very good clinician, but you're shit at business, or you're a phenomenal marketer, but you're probably not the best clinician. And that's the shitty. It's like Instagram though. It's like the people who talk the loudest, everyone thinks they're the best.
I do.
Right. It's kind of, it's
a
sword.
It is.
But like back in the day, you really had to search for answers to find out who knew their shit. And I think that was awesome because that's how you really vetted somebody if somebody else vouched for them. Now you can vouch for yourself all over Instagram. Like I'm a ghost for the most part. I think I just started putting out content probably a month or two ago. And it's because people were bitching at me nonstop to do it because they were trying to get me speaking gigs, but nobody knew who I was. So they're like, well, why would I bring this person on if I don't know who they are and they don't have any content that I'm speaking? So that's literally only the reason that I started making content.
Well, you're still referral based.
Yeah, I'm all pretty much.
You know what I'm saying? So
it's really hard to find me.
Yeah. I mean, I can find somebody that does what you do and they have 100,000 followers, but no patients. Who gives a shit?
True.
If you have 50 followers and 4 of them are patients, then you're doing better than that. That's where a lot of people in the space get things very, very fucking confused.
Yep.
Or conflated, I guess is what I would say, is that, follower count or whatever it's going to be is revenue.
Yep.
I'm like, actually, from what I've seen, it's the opposite.
Yeah. My follower count, it's not like it's anything high at all, but like as it's been creeping up, I've just been getting people asking me more dumb questions and not having patience from it.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And I'm like, oh, why the fuck am I doing this?
Yes.
But yeah, but it's funny because from a like business to business side of things, you can look at someone's content and you've been in the game long enough, like, who's shit based off of, what they're putting out or what they're talking about, but the consumer doesn't. And I feel like, so all the Instagram stuff is like B2C, all business to consumer based stuff. And the problem is that the consumer doesn't know how to vet because they don't know who's good and who's not. And I think we're getting into this realm where like people are being sold all these treatment packages and doing all this stuff. And they're getting seen by somebody who says they're this or who treated this pro athlete maybe when they were like, fucking 6 years old for one visit. But they're being sold all these lies and they're going to this person and be like, yeah, I saw this person and I didn't get shit out of it.
Yeah, I would, with what you do, I would be careful with that because if I'm looking for the best cardiologist and I'm going on social media and I'm going with the one that's got the higher follower count, I'm kind of fucking wondering, Now, wait a minute.
But you're smart though.
Yeah, but just common sense. Like if they're a cardiologist and they have to have office hours to be able to actually drive the services, surgeries or whatever that they're doing, right?
Yeah.
So between the office hours and the surgeries that they have, that's a lot of fucking time.
Yeah, when you have time to do all your shit.
So how are they?
Exactly.
So if this bucket over here of their content is really big, then either they don't have office hours, or they're actually not practicing, or they suck. Right. So
and that's like a very valid point that I try to bring up to a lot of people, because people are like, well, you can put out more content. And I'm like, I fucking work for a living. Like I'm seeing patients, and then when I get home, I have like an hour to eat, and then the rest of the time I'm trying to spend with my daughter before she goes to bed. And at that point, I'm going to read a research paper rather than like trying to stay up and post content late at night. I don't give a shit.
No, the leverage point would be if you were to have online, programs or whatever the fuck it is.
Exactly.
Webinars and shit like that. That I can see that. But from the practitioner side, I'm looking at the practitioner. They don't have a big follower count, because if they're on fucking Instagram and TikTok all day, then they're not treating people. And that's not who I want.
Exactly.
I want somebody that's actually fucking doing it. Like, why would you not? That makes no sense. I want to pivot a little bit, because I want to get into the vision stuff. And the broad question I have with this is, when I like to go back with a lot of the athletes that I'll have and lifters that I have, I like to know their early childhood development, because we have the different phases to where things, I don't want to say they're optimized, but there's certain phases to where, like endurance, the Russians were throwing babies in pools and shit. Right. So, but visual acuity is one of those components that falls early, like 8 to 12 or so. I'd have to go back and look the whole shit up, but that's kind of where the foundation just lies, or it starts to be developed. And to me, the way I explain that to people, that's the difference between an offensive lineman and a linebacker, right? The ability to process
what's going on,
the visual acuity. And it can be trained. A lot of the old SAQ conferences would work on this. Face the garage door and throw a fucking tennis ball and react to where the tennis ball is, to be able to train that. And then it kind of falls in this domain, like explosive strength, right? To where your ability, or flexibility might be another one that kind of falls in there, but the explosive strength comes more on this continuum in the conversation, to where some will say past a certain point, you're really not going to get any more explosive, because that foundation has already been lied, or you missed it, right? And you might be able to get a little bit better, but it's not going to be at its full potential. And the visual acuity kind of falls in that same conversation. But where I fall back on the explosive thing is, what's the first quality that athletes lose as they get older? The ability to display force, to produce force. So if it can't get better significantly or statistically, then we can stop it from getting worse.
Exactly.
Right. So there's that whole thing.
Vision's kind of the same thing with that.
Okay. That's what I was asking. Is vision like that?
Yeah. So vision is, because this is a really interesting debate. And I will probably catch a lot of shit from optometrists on this one. But so we go into the concept of visual acuity, right? So just 20/20 vision. Right. How far can I see if I stand, whatever, at 20 feet? Can I read this print? And a lot of times people say, like, it's not really a trainable quality. Right. But I think that's a lot of bullshit, because we can also change the shape of our lens, and it hardens as we age. This is also one of the big arguments. I think they say around like the age of 40, the lens starts to harden, and then it becomes harder to change shape of the lens. So it becomes harder to have better visual acuity, and you become more myopic. So like, you can see better up close, but not up far. Right. Or being able to tighten, come in and see something up close, and now you need readers or something like that. So it can really change depending on what's going on. But I remember when I got tested for my motorcycle license, I think, so growing up, my vision was like 2015, 2020. Like, it was really fucking good. And then I got tested for my motorcycle license at like 2021, and my vision was now 2040. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on? That doesn't make any sense. And it was to the point where I look in the thing and I'm like, I can't see this. I can't see what's going on. And the lady was like, have you ever had your eyes checked? I'm like, yeah, they're 20/20. I got them checked, whatever, 2-3 years ago. And she's like, oh, go get them checked now. And then they were like, oh no, you got 20/40 vision both eyes. You got an astigmatism. You know, you got all this shit going on. I'm like, where the fuck did that come from? Well, I've been on screens a lot more, right? You know, now we're in the age of like everybody's got a laptop and a cell phone and all this other shit. And I went on a vacation to Arizona and I didn't take my laptop with me and I was hardly ever on my phone. And I come back and I do a vision chart and all of a sudden my vision's 2015 again. I'm like, that's really fucking odd. So I started to dig into it a little bit more. And as we spend time on a phone, on a laptop, you know, anything up super close, we're stuck in a point of convergence. So essentially like our eyes are tracking in on a point, they're verging in as something's closer to me and they're holding it. Like our lens has to, you know, tighten up, change shape to focus all the light onto this one spot. Well, the problem is if it stays there all the time, it's harder for it to get any tighter. And so the way that I actually make it better is I loosen it up, which is just staring off into space, being out in nature. And now all of a sudden my eyes are relaxed because nothing's up in my eyes. So if my eyes are relaxed, they can now tighten back in. So now I can get back to 2015 vision all over again. And that's a trainable quality. However, they say as you get to the age of 40, like that goes away. But there was a German optometrist, Bates, way back in the day during, I think it was either World War I or World War II. And he had this very controversial take of saying, I can improve anybody's eyes no matter what age. And so he used to have people read, it's called diamond font, which is 4-point font. So it's very fucking small. And he would have people, that would be his assessment, is try and read this. I think it was from like 10 feet away or something like that. And could they read it? And then all he would have them do is this little thing of, you know, either palm your eyes, so put some light pressure on your eyes and just focus on the black and do that for long periods of time, or just stare at a blank wall and just zone out through it and hold it for long, long periods of time, because all you're doing is just relaxing your eyes, right? And he was having people do that, and then their vision was getting drastically better. And he even had a story like in one of his books about, I think a patient was 80 years old and they got improved vision. So I think it is a trainable quality, but I think we live in an era where everything around us is fucking us up to the point where our eyes are becoming more myopic, to where it's now like it's harder and harder. Myopic's not the best term, but it's harder and harder for us to tighten our vision because we already live in a very tight space. It'd be like, hey, take your, like if I'm doing a bicep curl and I put you right here and I say, okay, now pull it tighter. I'm almost at end range. Where the fuck am I going to go? But we never think of it like that.
So when I think of vision, when I think of visual acute, I think of it in two domains. The one that you said, what's the vision, you know, but then how do you process what's there?
That's a different layer. So that
right?
goes,
you see what I'm saying? Because they can have shitty vision,
yeah,
but still make out everything that's going on.
Yeah.
You know,
so that goes into, Warren's, she was an occupational therapist, but Warren's visual hierarchy, it's like a pyramid. And so at the base level of the pyramid, it's like visual acuity, ocular motor, like strength and control. And then the next level up is like searching and scanning a pattern. And then the next level up is pattern recognition. And then it's like visual memory and visual cognitive like events. So that's the processing. That's the upper layers of what's going on. Pattern recognition all the way up. The bottom layers is like what we're referring to within the acuity. And so she's like, this is your base foundation. So the better the information gets here, the easier it's going to be to process, because you already have a clear picture of what's going on. My brain doesn't have to fill in as many gaps.
Yeah.
Because your brain will fill in gaps, like no problem. Everyone who's ever read like some stupid shit on Facebook or Instagram where the first letter and the last letter of like a 4-letter word will be, you know, in the right spots, but the middle two will be flip-flopped. And you can read through a whole post and you can know exactly what it's being said, because you're not even realizing that the letters are mismatched. Your brain is predictive.
Yeah.
So it's just going to predictively process what's going on because it's seen it a million times. It goes, okay, it's this. And so it's quick glance all the way through and then you read the thing, no problem. Right. So that predictive processing comes into play, but it's only there because you've done the pattern a shit ton of times, but you also have really good visual acuity. So it's the information that's coming into the brain is crystal clear. So it knows exactly what's going on.
So if we're talking about the processing, then we kind of go back to the screens. The interesting question I've always had there is, if you take a teenager, right, and they're sitting on the couch and they got a whatever giant fucking screen TV, and they're playing a video game that's got a lot of shit going on,
Mhm.
right? There's a lot of visual processing
Yeah.
that's going on there. There's a lot of visual training that's going on. So you can say they're getting better at the game because they're just better at being able to process when this comes into the screen, which this kind of comes out into the screen,
Yep.
which
It's good and bad. So
it's good and bad.
It trains the top layers of that pyramid, but then it fucks up the bottom layers of that pyramid.
Yes, but the top layers being, you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's
catch-22.
Yeah. So when it gets into training the vision, how do you go about that with the athletes across the spectrum? So if you have the younger ones coming in, how do you get that to be more optimized because they're in that phase?
Mm-hmm.
Now, if they're older and it's, kind of going down,
Yeah.
how do you keep it from not going down?
Or
going down slower?
Yeah. I mean, we can all just refer back to that little pyramid. So we just hammer the basics. If I want to be really good with both eyes open, I need to be good with just one eye at a time. And so I'm super big on like paper drills because I think we spend too much time on computers and everything else. So I try to make everything on paper for the most part. And so we'll do these paper drills where we learn like visual acuity, we learn scanning, we learn accommodation, so like changing the shape of my lens, so going near and far and going back and forth, saccades where I'm darting from side to side, and we'll do these all single eye to just develop strength, learn to get good acuity, look to see how my eye is tracking, is it going to where it needs to go or is it over jumping or coming under too far? So all these little things. And then we start to layer into, okay, now let's do some both eye stuff, right? So now we can get into training up some of the depth perception. And we still have depth perception off one eye. And people don't realize how bad our depth perception is off of one eye. And one of the easiest drills to do with people is you just take a pen, somebody else holds a pen, and you just try and tap the pen to their pen, right? And they move it around and you do it. If you turn the pen sideways and say, okay, tap it in from the side now, you're fucked a lot of the time because I'm using your body as the reference point. I can essentially, that's how dogs view us. So when you talk to a dog, they just turn their head. If you're not moving at all, they've essentially lost their reference point. So they turn their head to see how far you are away from the wall behind you or whatever they're using, right? And so when I do that tap drill, I'm just referencing you. If I spin it, I can't use you as a reference point anymore. So now I'm using like a true like stereopsis, like a 3D depth perception. And so now I try to, touch the tips of those pens, and a lot of people will be like, psh, or right in front, like they cannot get it. And so that's how you can really show how bad someone is at using, whether it's like parallax or size estimation versus stereopsis. So these are all like different little things that go into depth perception.
So then how is that impacted with fatigue?
So this is a really interesting topic because there's not a shit ton of research on it. And some people will say it's not a big deal. And that was my initial instinct, right? So I remember going to this neuroscience conference and the guy was like, yeah, I did this thing with like stereoscopic glasses. And it's essentially like, if you put these glasses on, the stuff appears 3D, and then they measure like how far out can you like tap to where you think it is. And so they're just looking to see like how far before like it's gone back too far and now I don't have as great of depth perception. And they did this with professional baseball players because the conference is down in Florida and they were doing it during spring training. And the guy was like, yeah, this, no matter how high your heart rate goes, it doesn't really affect it all that much. And in my head, I'm like, that doesn't make any fucking sense because your vision usually goes to shit as you get tired, right? But how they were testing it, they weren't siphoning out each eye. Both eyes were doing the job. And what most people don't realize, as you get fatigued, you can start to suppress the images from an eye. So say this eye had phenomenal depth perception. If I started to lose depth perception, I might have lost this eye after the first few reps. This one can still keep hanging on. And so I was like, I don't think that's actually a true representation. So I asked him, what do you think about using like red-green glasses or whatever, red-blue glasses, whatever ones you want to use to actually siphon out each eye, right? To suppression test them. Because you could still kind of get a little bit of a depth perception doing that. Like they have tranaglyphs that are set up with red-green glasses. And his just response is like, well, we didn't do that. And I'm like, I immediately see a flaw within that research study that you guys did. I'm like, how the fuck do you not see that? You're an optometrist. And I've tested that with people. So I'd love to tell the story about one of the rugby players I've worked with overseas, very, very high level athlete. He flew over, and when he was completely fresh, we did red-green glasses and we did a little bit of like the 3D effects with some of the stuff. And then I had him read this paper. So the grid was all red on one column, all white on another column, and it was alternating. And so with those glasses on, they correlated to each grid. So you could only see certain colors with your right eye and then certain colors with your left eye. Otherwise, it would just completely blank it out. You wouldn't be able to see the letters in that box. And what this guy was realizing, when he was totally fresh, he could see no problem. We get his heart rate up, and all of a sudden, nothing out of the right eye. He's like, I can't see any of the letters. And we got as close as 10 feet, and he couldn't see any of the letters. Still out of his right eye. You go back and you watch all of his film, every shit pass he ever made, off to his right-hand side. Every time he got smoked in a tackle that he should have saw coming, off his right-hand side. Every time he took a terrible angle on a tackle, all from his right-hand side.
So how do you go about training that?
So then we just got to get back to, utilizing some of those glasses, delaying the suppression. So as you get fatigued, your brain makes a conscious decision, like get rid of any information that I don't think is crystal clear, because the last thing I want is double vision. And so it'll just shut off that image. You will never know though. Like everybody's got their own dominant eye that they like to use. And so if this thing can still give me depth perception, it can still give me a good reference point. I just might not trust this for depth perception. I might just be heavily reliant upon this. I might still get some, visual acuity and everything that's going on. Oops. But as you get fatigued, that starts to tank a little bit more. And if you get super fatigued, or you get a high amount of sympathetic stress, your vision goes to shit. Anybody who's done a super heavy set of squats, they know as soon as you rack that thing up, it's tunnel vision. Can't see shit. And that's exactly what happens in sport. So we start to get tunnel vision because I now lose my peripheral vision. And that's going to happen very soon on the shitty eye if it doesn't trust the information that's coming from it. You can also start to lose color a little bit too. So that's why sometimes I'll take Uno cards and just pull them out to the side and test their peripheral vision to see where they're at, both fresh and fatigued. Like, do we lose a certain color under fatigue?
I built Elite FTS in 1998, 27 years ago, with the aim to help educate as many people as I could in strength and conditioning. And the way to do that was to keep all the content complementary. The way that we've been able to do that since day one is by providing the best products possible to help your training program. If you can put the item in a gym bag or load plates on it, we have it, and it will work. Everything from SS yoke bars to American press bars, bands. We also have a strength equipment specialist staff that helps outfit home gyms, sport training centers, colleges that have over 3 decades of experience and also have spent a lot of time working as coaches, so they understand the flow of the weight room and how things actually get done. If you're serious about your training and you want to up your game and support the podcast and all the content that we provide, head over to elitefts.com and use the code TABLETALK at checkout to receive 10% off your orders.
If I lose a certain color under fatigue, say like within football, I had a buddy that actually tested a quarterback in the NFL on this, and what they found was that guy had way more interceptions and a shitty QBR against teams that had that exact color throughout the game. So there's a lot, it's a hidden frontier, and there's a lot of cool shit to be done with it.
No, there's a lot of cool shit, because the one thing that came to my head when you were talking about as blood pressure will play into this, because if you're squatting, right, and it's heavy, and then the world just starts closing in. One of the things that I try to get through the top lifters is, they have to find their focus point wherever it is, because it's going to help head position. It's going to help other things, right? It's going to help their head position and everything else. But once they find that focal point, they have to be able to focus on it to keep that from going completely black.
Yep.
Because you go completely black, you're going to be fucked, right?
Yep.
And if they're in multiply gear and all this other compression, the odds of going completely black are way higher. The ones that will go completely black, I typically find, are the ones that aren't finding a focal point and trying to stay on that. They just let it naturally happen. They're not trying to find, a certain spot, and it's just all anecdotal bullshit, but it makes a difference.
No, but you're super right on this, because within the military, like, especially when they use like nods, like low vis scenarios, so it's dark out, shit like that. they're super reliant upon their vestibular system, because the visual system, I'm losing input. So now I'm way more reliant upon my visual system or my vestibular system and proprioceptive systems. So it's like, do I have really good feedback from my feet to my brain? Do I have really good feedback from like shoulder position or neck or knees or whatever to my brain? And then how do the ear canals, how does my balance actually play a role? Like, do I have very good vestibular input or not? Because I might now, if that's shit, I'm way more reliant upon my vision. But if my vision goes black way sooner, now I'm super fucked. So like having a bit of a better vestibular system buys me time with my vision, because it's not now the main focal point of what I'm using. I can also have a little bit of input from one of the other systems that comes in with it.
So with the vision and the visual acuity, what advice would you give, say, a high school athlete that doesn't have a coach and knows what the hell they're doing, which is kind of like most of them, to be able to work on it?
I have some drills, just pen and paper. It's super easy. Like, it's my logo. I should have brought them in, but it's my logo with just a bunch of numbers like scattered throughout the paper. And I tell people, cover one eye and just tap 1 through 30 in order. And so some of the numbers it's a black number and it might be against the white background of the paper. And then I got another number that's my logo's in like a shade of gray. And so it's completely on the gray. So now it's black on gray. And I got some that are half on, half off the logo. And so I'm really just looking to see, like, what's our search patterns look like? How well can we stay in? Like, does your eye get super fatigued? Does it get really watery? Do you start blinking a lot? Because those are all signs of brain fatigue, right? Anyone that's driven late at night, like their eyes get, heavy, you're blinking a whole bunch, you might get a little watery in them. Like, that's a sign that your brain's like, all right, I've had enough, I'm shutting off. And I can induce this with vision training, because vision is just an output of the brain. So it's very taxing on people. People don't realize that. But we'll go through, and that's probably the easiest drill to do. And like, you can make that on anything. Like, I made that on Canva in 10 minutes. Like, it's not very hard. And we like to think, all these vision training drills are really fucking complex, and I need these thousands of dollars of computer equipment and all this shit. And like, not really, because I'm still training all these pro athletes with just, piece of paper that I printed out at Kinko's.
Going back to the color thing, when you said with the athletes, could the colors of the other team's uniform play a role in how the person is reacting? Because you said like certain colors, like
they might just not pick it up.
So like, depending on the other person's team's colors, they could actually
I might not perceive that you're there. Like, say like we have a crossing route and you're just camped out, right? Let's say like you're a linebacker punching out into the flat, and I've got this quick out. I might not perceive that you're there, and I see my guy running and I just throw that route and then you jump it. Like, it happens all the time. If you watch sports, you're like, the guy was literally staring him down. How the fuck did he not see them right there? The guy's been chilling in the flat this whole time. And you're like, that makes no sense when you watch the tape. And sometimes that's just the reason why.
And by doing those drills, that could basically help you in that scenario. Like,
because it can widen out my field of vision. I might just start by putting like sticky notes that are a certain color and write a number on it or whatever, and start putting it in certain areas of your peripheral vision to start narrow and start working our way out to get more comfortable with being able to, read what's going on. And so I can at least stay attuned to that color. Because a lot of people have color sensitivities they don't even know about. You put certain color glasses on them and it's like their world shuts down. Like, they might have a weak squat when you do that too. Like, I've seen weird shit happen with that.
This is super interesting to me, though. Super interesting to me, because I would think that is young athlete, junior high, high school, to really make this the best that they can during that time period would be huge. Because if I go down this voodoo route, right, to where that's going to, will that help play into, I'm going to go into this voodoo land, their intuition? Yeah. Right? Because the intuition is basically based upon prior feedback.
Exactly.
Right? And that prior feedback of being able to know all this shit's going on, the more clear that can all be during a time period where it's not degrading because of age and all this other shit. Then when you get older,
you can still train it as you get older too. I got actually a really interesting story with, I was working with a couple of members from SWAT team. And so I've been doing a lot more work in tactical space because of this neurovisual training. And this is another really crazy rabbit hole you can go down with all this stuff, but just using something as simple as that search and scan drill and getting good at contrast sensitivity. They were talking about I asked one of the guys, I'm like, what do you think of this stuff? I'm like, do you think it's doing anything for you? Because that's always the biggest thing. Like, we can do all this cool shit in the world. It's like, is it actually making a difference? And so he told me the story. They went to go, it was a hostage situation. They went to, they busted down the door. We're trying to clear out the room. He was second man in. So breacher kicked down the door. First guy in, goes through. He clears out right side room. But he should have scanned and picked the fact up that the guy, lights were off. But he should have at least scanned and at least hopefully caught that the guy was in the back left corner of the room, tucked in behind the couch. Right. And he had his gun drawn and ready. Well, my guy's second guy in, and he just sees this glimmer of light. He's like, I just saw the quickest bit of movement. And so I draw my weapon onto it, and then I got eyes on it and just neutralized the threat. He's like, I saved, my partner's life. So that guy's probably early 40s, late 30s, early 40s. I'm like, so this is all trainable shit.
Yeah.
It's like, that was one of the coolest things. He was like, I was just trying to explain that, to the guys back at the station. He was like, I've been working on all this shit, and all of a sudden it's like, I can perceive things way faster now. It's like, I have way more confidence when I clear a room.
No, it's huge. But if we go to the funky place, it's the Karate Kid with the blindfold on.
Yeah.
Like, if you teach it enough that intuition's strong enough, then you kind of know by repetition, where all those things are. But if you were kind of blinded, then that's not going to be as strong as what it should be.
Some of the intuition plays into pattern recognition as well. So
not if you can't see the patterns.
If you know the layout of the room, that's a big thing. So like, they're always, in an ideal world, they have blueprints of, where they're going into. So they know the layout of something. And so there's actual tests you can do. So the guy that mentored me on all this vision training stuff is out of Cincinnati. The guy's a fucking whiz, amazing, PhD neuroscience on all this stuff. And he was doing stuff because he works with Fort Campbell, especially with their EOD, to get them to recert after they've been injured. And he does this little drill where he gives them a quick snapshot of a room, and then he takes it away real quick. We call it like a chistoscope. Is the fancy term for it. And he says, okay, what did you see? And it's like a flash. It's a split second. Right? He's trying to get as much information from them as he can. But what he was noticing is the more that they were doing the vision drills, the more information he was able to pull from that chistoscope. So by just getting a quick scan of what's going on, it stuck in their head better, and they had a better representation of what's going on. And especially like spatial awareness. So that's mostly like in the cerebellum, which is also linked with movement, right? So I can then assess something in the brain, and then I could probably figure out you probably got a deficit somewhere else while we're trying to move.
Again, that's huge for an athlete, right? Is all this stuff, the spatial awareness and all those. The other topic I wanted to talk to you about was just breathing, right? Because it goes through phases. Yeah. I think we're kind of like in a downslope of the whole phase, but it will come back again. Yeah. And not so much the breathing from, I don't want to, we can go into the psychology route, because that's another real weird route in the whole industry, because it's like, maybe they know flow state, maybe they know, hit the ammonia and get really aroused and then meditate. So, and that's kind of like where it all ends. Yeah. That's like sports psychology as it kind of plays out and all that. But where I see personally, where I see one of the biggest benefits of the breathing is just to be able to bring the heart rate back down between bouts, right? So if it's a set of squats or, a drill or whatever it is, how fast can you bring the heart rate back down, which is going to allow more time for you to actually recover before that next bout comes, right? So when you're working with the athletes and you're introducing them just into, I hate to say learning how to breathe, because I used to make fun of that, because like, we all fucking know how to breathe. We're live, right? This is where it gets dicey with the whole conversation, because you're going to have the basic observation. Like, no shit. If we didn't breathe, we'd be dead. Right. And then there's being able to optimize, for heart rate and all the other type of things. So where do you start to where it's not completely goofballish? Like, going back into like, why do we coach breathing? It's an innate thing. I always liken it to, if you ever watch King of the Hill, and Bobby like fails his English test, and so Hank asks him, he's like, how the fuck do you, how do you fail English? You speak it. Right? And so that's the thing. It's like, there's nuances within it, just like there's nuances within the English language. Like, even though we know how to speak and we know how to do the bare minimum, there's still nuances within breathing.
And whether I need to do it from my back is tight, like how do I open that up? Like there's certain breathing techniques I can do to open that. A lot of lifters struggle with pelvic floor issues, right? It's super obvious, like within women, because that's usually what we think of it.
Yeah,
like pelvic floor, whether it's like they were gymnasts when they were younger, or like post-pregnancy, or like from lifting on a platform. Like guys, you don't see it as much, but guys, it usually manifests as just very chronic, like tight low backs, which every lifter has.
Yeah.
You don't ever think twice about it. But it's because a lot of the time when you brace, if you've only been ever taught just to breathe into the belt, you're not breathing deep enough to actually get the rebound off the pelvic floor.
Yes.
And so a lot of lifters are just taught the initial cue of like, just breathe out into your belt, it'll be fine. Right. But it's like, I almost want you to breathe into it's a dumb cue because it's not really how that works, but like try to breathe into your nuts. So they get the visual of like, oh, I need to breathe way deeper than what I should. Because if I can breathe all the way down, the air is naturally just going to fill into my belt and everywhere else. So like doing little cues like that, but then you go back into heart rate, like bringing down our heart rate. There's a really, really good book on sports psych that's not bullshit, because I found like a lot of the stuff is,
Yes, it is.
Yeah. And so it's Perform Under Pressure by Kerry Evans, right? And I believe he's out of New Zealand, but fucking phenomenal. Like one of my favorite books I've ever read. And he goes into this, like, simplifies it into a red and blue state. It's like my red, is my midbrain, think more like limbic system, more arousal based, more, calls it like an ape brain, like aggressive, passive, like escape. And then my blue brain is like housed more in my cortex. And that's more like in ice, like cool, calm, collected. So intent, clarity, execution. Right. And that's also another hotly debated topic, is like the triune brain within psychology. But it's a good way to kind of get people interested in at least starting to learn about, how you can leverage like different aspects of your brain within breathing. And you go into, breathing to calm people down. Like I like to use visualization as well as like certain breathing. So I can use box. I can use a 1 to 2 breathing. You can make up whichever ones. The key is like, can you at least hold your breath and then let it out slowly?
Elaborate on box breathing for those that don't know.
So box breathing would be like equal representation of all sides. So essentially I can breathe in for 3 seconds, I can hold for 3 seconds, breathe out for 3 seconds, hold for 3 seconds. You could do triangle breathing, which I've talked to a lot of shooters and they tend to use that. Or 1 to 2. So for every second I breathe in, I breathe out twice as long. I like to use that with ice baths when I coach people as like a stress response training thing. So any of those little things. But I add the visualization piece of it in, and I say, imagine you have this ice cube sitting in your chest. And all I'm trying to focus on is I'm trying to breathe in and almost make this ice cube get real cold and become very blue. And I should feel that sense of cold throughout my entire body. And then when I breathe out, I'm trying to breathe like that cold sensation all the way down throughout my body. And if I do it correctly, it's going to take a long time to breathe it all the way down throughout all aspects of my body. Well, that long exhale is going to drop my heart rate and calm me down a lot faster. Then you can also add in stuff like trigger words too. So I train fighters, and I've always told the guys who are cornering them, I'm like, if you rehearse this enough, like it'll stick with them. So like one of my guys, you'll see it in between each rounds of every fight. So he like goes into the corner, he kind of assesses where he's at. Like, do I need to be more red or do I need to be more blue? And then can I use my breathing to put me into one of those states? Usually for him, it's, chilling out a little bit more. And so he uses that ice cube analogy. And then one of the other guys that I train, who's another fighter but also corners him, like can give him these words of whatever he might use to be more blue. And that could be his fiance's name. It could be the name of his dog, like something that's going to chill him out. And it almost becomes subconscious. You just have to say it over and over and over to where they become like a trigger, like Pavlovian conditioning for dogs. And then we have the same thing for red. And so he might have trigger words to get him more amped up. And I might use hyperventilating breathing. Like it cracks me up when people use Wim Hof to calm themselves down. Like all it does is hype you up. So breathing in is not calming at all. Your heart rate actually goes up, right? It's called respiratory sinus arrhythmia. So your heart rate goes up when you breathe in. So anyone that tells you, take a deep breath, it'll help you be more clear or to calm you down, like they're full of shit. If anything, it's going to ramp you up and then make it worse to make the proper decision. It's breathing out and holding that exhale that makes you calm, because you can start to build up a tolerance to CO2. CO2 is really what governs how bad your anxiety is going to be within decision making. So we have a thing called amygdala-induced apnea. And I kind of liken the amygdala to being almost like a gateway between and again, this is like vastly oversimplified and this is a very hotly debated topic within psych, but midbrain to cortex, like what makes you more animalistic, what makes you more human, right? Your amygdala houses emotion for the most part. It regulates a lot of that stuff. We think of it as like a fear or an anger response, but really it's a little bit more complex than that. And I can use that as like a check and balance because my CO2 is linked into that amygdala. Like it's got a sensor that regulates all this stuff. So if CO2 is going too high and I can't handle it, I will physically take a breath in, hold my breath, drive up CO2 real high to scare the shit out of myself so that I leave the situation. Perfect example is like if you watch football, it's 4th and 1, game's on the line. What does everybody do? They hold their breath when they watch. And then they let out that breath, when the play's over. And it's an innate fear response. It's like, get me the fuck out of here because I don't feel comfortable here.
So what any powerlifter will do during a maximum attempt is pull the air and hold the air.
Yeah.
Right. Which when you were speaking about, the box and triangle, the one thing if I'm trying to go to sleep, it's box.
Yep.
Right. If I'm between a circuit or short duration, high intensity type training, it's always the triangle. Mm-hmm. Right. And you kind of elaborated on that because of the exhale, right? The box is going to have too many inhales. Right. And then what the triangle is going to have if I'm going between one bout with 45 seconds and the next bout, 45 seconds to the next bout. So and I like to fuck with these things to play around, like which one's going to get me in a ready state faster. Not that it really matters with what I do, but it's fun, to be able to kind of do that. But I don't think people the interesting thing that you said was the colors with the breathing part, because visualization has always been a big part of my life since I was in junior high school, wrestling coach, right? So red is tied to aggression. It's always been there. I never thought that the breathing is also tied to the color, but it is, right? The color is, for me, leading to the breathing.
Yeah, think of like stoking a fire. Like how do you stoke a fire? You don't do it with a long, slow exhale. It's
yeah, see, I've never anchored it with the breathing, though. I would just get into that state that I need to be in and then see red. So use the visualization and whatever. But whenever I'm in that state, like here's that peak fucking state I need to lift a weight, right?
Yeah.
Then it's just see red. Then over time the more optimal way is to anchor to something with the breathing, right? Instead of, because I can just close my eyes and see red, I'm probably going to get pissed off.
You trained it enough.
I've trained it enough. Yeah. But you could train that, but fuck it up too.
True.
Right. To where if you train that and now if your breathing is not correlated with what that is, then you just retarded yourself.
Yeah. And so I think it's such an interesting point of like, hey, we need to coach this. We need to lock all this shit in so that we have a really good idea of, okay, use this thing or use that thing to create the proper anchors. And the more that we practice it, the better it clicks. But having the visualization piece really helps because if I want to like blow something so that it spreads throughout my body, I'm not going to hyperventilate because that's not going to push it anywhere I want it to go. Whereas like if I need something to like stoke that fire, like to get that, that little fire in my chest going brighter and brighter and brighter, like I'm going to have to hyperventilate because if I blow too slow, it's not just going to build. And so we've tied it into that and that's helped them a shit ton. But going back into the calming people down thing, I've been playing around with this device to breathe way better from isocapnic. And been using it a lot with my fighters, but I've been using it before bed now. And so it's meant to train your lung capacity to learn how to breathe deeper and all this stuff. But it's a breather bag to where it's got like almost like a little scuba mouthpiece and you breathe into this bag and the bag houses all the CO2 that you breathe out, but it's got another valve that lets oxygen in and out. So it keeps it perfectly balanced. Cause this is the issue that you run into with all breathing trainers is you're breathing out so much CO2 that you just get lightheaded. Mm-hmm. Like people pass out from doing them. Well, this thing you're breathing back in the CO2. So this keeps everything in perfect balance, but it also gets you accustomed to CO2. And being accustomed to CO2 can keep you very fucking calm. And so I've been using this thing before bed and it's putting me to sleep like a champ, but it's also keeping me calm throughout the day because I get stressed out really fucking easily and I'll fly off the hinge. And so this has been like a great way to train that CO2. So I've been using it with like long COVID patients because they're very sensitive to carbon dioxide. I've been using it with like the fighters, trying to keep them calmer within their decision making. Because I also do breath hold walks. Like that's another way to drive up CO2 into the system as well. But this isocapnic is like a really convenient device to play around and practice with that stuff.
I just want to take a moment to let you know about our crew. What our crew is, it allows the show to stay independent, and it's the reason why.
Since you opened this door to this psychology thing, the piece that I see missed or not spoken about is when it is spoken about, it's talked about from the training or before bed, in these very specific realms. And there's a general assumption made that their life stress is fine.
Yeah.
Right. But that's the base. Like in strength and condition, we have a conditioning base, right? You have to have a certain aerobic base just to be able to recover from fucking doing anything, right? And if they don't understand the things they can control and not control, like if we just take one of your MMA athletes, right, and say, okay, here's the deal. Here's your program. You don't have to worry about that. That's all laid out. They don't have to worry about the stress of that. Then they realize I don't need to go find another coach because that's going to stress them out. We just reduce all that.
Yep.
Don't worry about the fucking news. Like, don't worry about all that kind of shit because you can't control all that, right? Because usually what you end up getting when you start working on all these other things is a fucking mess that can be controlled just by better decision making that they're doing by understanding being more stoic, I suppose, of just understanding what they can and cannot control. Because most people's stress, from what I see, is all around shit they can't do anything about.
Yeah.
Especially now. That
also goes into, like you talked about, taking the decision making out of things. Like that would fall under like Hebb's law of requisite variety. And so what Hebb was saying was the more things I introduce, the more, I forget, I think it's like confounders is what it was described as. The more things I add into an equation, the more it slows down your decision making. Right. So perfect example, right? We got a shit ton of energy drinks in here. I was like a fucking kid in a candy shop when I walked in this morning. I have a bad caffeine addiction. And so if all you had was White Monsters, I would have picked the White Monster, no problem. But now you had White Monster with Reign. If you only had White Monster or one Reign, that'd have been a really fucking easy decision, except you had 4 different types of Reign. So I had to sit there and think, which one did I want? So my decision making gets slowed down with each decision that gets thrown into the matrix, that I have to, one little thing that gets added in. Well, eventually, if I add in enough things, I can slow down the system so much that I overwhelm it and it shuts down. Perfect example is if you ever ask your wife where you want to go get dinner. You're never going to get a straight answer. Right. And so, because essentially it's just too many things to think about. But if I say, hey, would you want to eat here? Do you want to eat here? I've taken away all the other extra stressors. You only have 2 things to pick from. It's going to be really easy to choose.
White Monster's the best, man.
I was kind of regretting not picking one up, to be honest.
The supportive example of all this would be, why do fighters go into a training camps? It's to reduce a lot of that other noise, to be able to focus and take those things out. Where in my opinion, that might be the bigger component. Yeah. Before we get into all the other.
Takes other noise out, yeah.
Yeah, it takes all the other shit out. Like, that might even be more important than the visualization and all those other type of things.
Yeah.
But it's never addressed.
And that's when I tell them, I'm like, we can work on that shit in camp, but we were working our strengths. Like, we're not really, at that point, we're not making a whole lot of tweaks to stuff. We're not trying to like really hammer on your weaknesses and bring them up. Like, we're just going to train the shit you're already good at. Why would I add in more variables to the system just to overwhelm you? Once you get in that 8 weeks of camp, like, we're just going to focus on the shit you're already good at, so you feel confident going into the fight. And we might work on 1 or 2 things, that we brought over from outside of camp. But all this other shit, like, work on it outside of camp. That's like when my guys come in, like, we don't do a whole lot of ab work because I'm like, I don't need to sit here and watch you do a fucking crunch or watch you do, a landmine twist or whatever. You can do that shit because they all have access to a gym. Like, do that shit when you go to train. Like, do a little bit of that. Like, don't waste my time, come in here and have me coach you to do a fucking sit-up.
Yeah. Because you're certified in about everything. So how do you navigate all the different modalities when it comes to recovery?
It's so individualized. That's the more I've been finding out about shit. Like, I have some people, they respond absolutely great to ice baths, and I have other people where it fucks them up. And I think honestly it comes down to parasympathetic versus sympathetic. And I'm trying to quantify that a little bit better. Like, whether we use HRV or whether we're doing like those, I like to use the breath holds, right? If I hyperventilate, I'm very sympathetic. If I look at my resting heart rate, like while they're in the ice bath, it's going to be sky high. I know that's sympathetic. So if I can control my breathing and I can slow it down and I can get it, I think the best that I ever got it to was like on a 15-second, like on a 1 to 2, I think I got it to 20 and 40. So 1 breath per minute when I was in the ice bath. And so that I knew I was in an extremely calm state, because otherwise I'd be breathing 30 times a minute. And now my breath is 1 time per minute. Right. So that's a way that I can kind of quantify that stuff. But if someone doesn't have the capability to calm themselves, like they just don't have the parasympathetic bandwidth, they will not respond to that modality, because at the end of the day, like, they're all stressors. The ice bath isn't a recovery modality. It's a stressor.
Mm-hmm.
It's really just banking on you. Can you control that stress and then drop it off real quick? Right. It'd be like hopping up on a treadmill. If you've never ran and I put that thing at like 4.5 miles an hour, like you might get exhausted very quick. But for like a fighter that runs all the time, like that's a light recovery jog for them.
Well, would that be the same thing if it was, say, dry needling, that it's just a stressor, that they're all just stressors?
They're all just stressors. And so if you're afraid of needles, which like I don't think any powerlifter is.
Yeah.
So I like they're going to respond to that fairly well. Whereas like for my athletes that don't like needles at all, if I try to dry needle them, like they freak out and they're way more sore over it. So I don't use it with them. Now there's times where I'm like, hey, this would probably benefit you more, but that's where I'll go find other modalities to help. If you're afraid of the needles, I can just use the dolphins. Like I'm sure Serrano's probably used those on you.
Yeah.
They feel like a needle, especially with him because he fucking jabs them India. But
yeah, well, it's unnecessary.
Yeah. But
what's a dolphin?
We have one out here. It's
it's microcurrent essentially is what it is. So like electrical stim, but it's got a different variation of it. So think like a TENS unit, except the current that it uses is different.
Oh.
Yeah, but they're kind of like ballpoint pens, and so they're electrically charged, so you can make it negative, positive, whatever you want. And so I can set them to negative to put it in like a calming area and just put it over super tight muscle and pump that current into it, because we all have a resting potential for like a muscle. It might sit at negative 55 or negative 60 millivolts. The closer it gets to 0, it contracts. Like if it goes above 0, the muscle contracts. And what happens is then it repolarizes, so it drops way down to say like negative 120 and then comes back up to its normal negative 60. But if you've got a super tight muscle, it might be sitting at negative 30. So it's way easier for it to contract. If I pump it full of a negative current, it's going to drop it back down to where it's relaxed. And that's kind of one of the premises along with like dry needling as well. Like you're just introducing a metal to the area. So you might get a twitch response, but it also might just fuck with the voltage in that area. And that can kind of calm things back down.
Wild.
No, I like the way that you broke that down, because I've never looked at it that way, that they're all stressors that you're looking for a certain adaptation to come from, right? So it would be individualized to whoever that person is, you know, which could be why they all work and they all suck.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think that's why if you look at the research, like nothing ever works.
Yes.
Fucking nothing works if you look at research. It makes no sense at all. But most of it's because it's low back pain, like chronic low back pain. And what would work well for me will not work well for you. Everything needs to be individualized, except we report everything as group data.
Well, here's the thing, and I can apply this to all modalities and peptides and all this. I can apply it across the board, that when I have some chronic issues, right? I know other people that have chronic issues. I've lifted heavy for 4 fucking decades, right? Yeah. I have some chronic issues. So when like Louis would say, oh, I ate this clay and it made me fucking feel better or whatever, there's always something that makes you feel better, right? No matter what I do, it doesn't fucking matter, right? It doesn't. So, but on some people, everything's like the greatest thing in the world. The first thing that goes through my head is, how fucked up are you?
Yeah, probably not that bad.
You know, like if you're just a little fucked up and I like flick you in the back of the ear and make you think that it's going to be better, then you're going to be better.
Exactly.
Right. So then how do you know what the fuck you says? Like, how do you know what's good and what's not?
That's the hardest thing I think to parcel out. And that's also what research can't take into account either. And people talk about the placebo effect like it's a bad thing. But if the placebo effect helped you get back 1 day sooner, or helped your lift go up 10 pounds, is it worth it?
No, it's a real,
absolutely.
Fucking billion-dollar industries just built on that.
Yeah, there's a lot of bullshit that's being sold on that too.
A whole lot.
Yeah, and so that's also the tricky part too. It's like, if it actually helps that person, do I tell them that it's bullshit? Do I fuck their whole existence up? That's the tricky part.
Well, as a practitioner, I'm going to say
You probably should.
depends.
Yeah. Like, I mean, it depends. Like, how bad is it for them? How much does it cost them money? Like, I have some people that are stupidly rich and they'll spend money on the dumbest shit and be like, I think it helps. I'm like, all right, fuck it, go do it. But if I got someone who's super broke and they're like, what do you think about this red light device? I'm like, it's probably not going to magically repair your grade 3 hamstring tear.
Well, we're in a different age to where because a lot of these things are going to have studies to be able to support them. Like, and a lot of the studies are being sent to predatory journals, which have no review process. And the average person doesn't have any way to be able to actually vet or review what that study is. And they'll be sent to them. Yeah. Like, here's all these studies. They're on our website. Go download them.
Yeah.
Well, now you fucking can. And you can throw it in a large language model and say, what are the pros and cons? And real fucking quick, it's going to say this one had, 400 participants and there were only 5 people in the control group.
Yeah.
So
it's interesting stuff like that. And then even getting deeper into it, it's like how well is the study set up, and then how is the data reported? So for example of this, when tendinopathy research is very big, especially like a handful of years ago, it got very, very popular. And so everybody just started doing isometrics for everything, because there was a paper came out and it showed isometrics help reduce, tendon pain by X%. And all these people responded, extremely well to it. I had 5 patients come in the following Monday after I read this paper, did it with every single one of them. Every single one of them got worse. And I go, what the fuck? Right? Like, the research said that this should work. Well, another paper came out, I want to say maybe like a year later, and they reported individual data. And they showed that some people got better, some people got worse, some people stayed the same. But the people that got better at such a high rate that would have skewed a lot of the group data. How do we report everything in research? Group data. Like, we don't really stratify out a lot of the stuff. And I think that's tricky. And I remember when I was at a conference, I was probably 19 at the time. Jose Antonio, like, phenomenal researcher, amazing with nutrition, I think he's the head of the ISSN, was giving a lecture, and he had like this hierarchy of evidence pyramid, and then he just flips it upside down. And he goes, this is what I give a shit about, that N of 1. That, because I'm working with the person in front of me. They might not respond to what happened in that research study. And it's because there's so many moving variables, like in real life, that, that research might have been worked in a highly controlled environment. It's not necessarily going to work with the person that I have in front of me. Doesn't mean don't use research. Like, you should still read the research and try and see, like, does this apply to my person or not? And it's kind of like a general, like, yes, it might not. But I think it's way more complex than what we make it seem. Like PRP, if you look at the data on PRP, it's not great, but yet it works on every pro athlete. Why? Because they take care of themselves. PRP is really just based around how well do you heal. It's just taking your own blood out, spinning it, and then injecting you back with the platelet-rich plasma. Right? Or is it leukocyte rich, or is it leukocyte poor? Like, so it also comes down to the practitioner. Are they using the right one at the right time? Like, I've had athletes get PRP and they get the wrong one, and all of a sudden the joint is blown up and they're on crutches for 3 weeks because the doctor fucked it up. They injected them with the wrong one.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's like, is it really like the fact that PRP doesn't work? Is it that just they didn't get the right one? It's way more complex than we would like to make it seem. And people do not like not knowing. And you have, like, as a practitioner, like, you have to be okay with not knowing the full answer. And that's really fucking frustrating for a lot of people.
The PRP made me think of, if I backtrack to just prolotherapy, it's, we used to inject saline, and long story short, it kind of came from an idea that somebody that I was training with read a Penthouse magazine. It used to have little articles, little blurbs, and it showed that saline and a knee, would kind of like wash out, derbis and shit that was like hanging out in there. So we're like, fuck it, it's got to work for torn pecs. And it did, right? It helped. But I still to this day don't know if it was actually the saline or just the needle ripping through the muscle. Yeah.
Well, that's the other thing too, because that's how we came up with dry needling. Someone just didn't put they didn't put saline in the needle. And so then it, like, there's nothing coming out of it. So then it becomes dry needling. That's how the whole thing came about. And so that's why it's labeled the way it is. But the other thing is like, is saline truly inert? I would say probably not, because there's definitely shit within saline.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we don't know, like, could it have a biochemical effect in the tissue? Absolutely. How do we study that? I don't fucking know. It's above my pay grade.
Yeah, I just figured, what's it going to fucking hurt? It ain't going to hurt anything. So if we stay on this how do you go about explaining the muscle testing? So just say the applied kinesiology,
Yeah.
you know, because that's one thing that always kind of pissed me off, because I would think I could beat it, but I never could. Right. I'm like, if this is all placebo and I can't override it, then what the fuck is going on?
Right.
It never holds. You know, I will say that.
Yeah, that's the other thing, though. I think it just comes down, I almost call it like manual movement testing, because you can't really isolate out a single muscle because we have muscle redundancy.
Yeah, but why can I not beat them?
And I think sometimes it just comes down to, like, is that area a little bit fucked up? Like, you might not feel pain currently, but there could be something that's changing the firing rate or how something is going in there. And that's what's fucking with something.
Yeah, but if they do that, then they rub the back of my fucking temple, then all of a sudden I'm strong as fuck and do the same thing.
And it could just be giving, like, that's an excitatory thing. Like, that's a stimulating thing around whatever, and that's going to upregulate here. Like, sometimes weird shit like that can happen. Because I've also had them do that where they, like, swipe down your arm, and they're like, I'm taking away all your strength. And then they do it, and you're like, fuck, what just happened?
Yes.
Right? And so I think it's a bit of, like, them cognitively fucking with you and saying that if they give you verbal instructions. But also, like, if they swipe back up, like, that's a stimulating thing to some of the receptors in the area. And so that might give you more awareness to that area, which might help drive a little bit more motor output. And that's the other thing is, like, could it work? Sure. Does it stick? I don't know. Am I going to shit on it? Like, hey, if it works, it works.
It's like magic, you know, but it never
sticks. That's the biggest thing.
It doesn't stick. I mean,
it's all load. Like, if you're, putting a couple 100 pounds on your shoulder, like, just doing a bodyweight exercise, it might be good to get it to fire, but it's not going to stick as soon as you get back onto the bar.
All right. So let's go into chiropractic adjustments, right? So it's because we're talking about sticking and all this other kind of stuff. And I'm sure there's a lot of people that are listening to this that swear by their chiropractor and all this other stuff. And some of the things that I learned over the years where you need to, if you're getting adjusted and they know what they're doing, you need to be careful of when you don't do that, then just go train.
Yeah.
You want to give some leeway.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I've definitely, like, fucked that up early in my career. Like, where I work with a golfer and we adjust their, like, hip and low back that's been tight for 3 months, and all of a sudden they just start blasting balls off the tee, and then they're locked up for another week.
So how would somebody know if who they're seeing is good, or if they've been, because you're kind of trained this in school, trained and conditioned to be able to go on the 3-day-a-week billing cycle?
Yeah. Yeah, that's such the hard thing about it. Yeah, I don't even know how you would properly vet that, because I've met plenty of people that are, like, really shit at their job, and I met plenty of people that are really good at their job, and you would never know. But I think it's someone that doesn't try to pigeonhole you into the same treatment plan as everybody else, because we're all taught the same thing, like 3 times a week for 2 weeks, and then 2 times a week for, I think it's like 6, because there's some bullshit study that they used back and then like 1 time a week for 12 weeks. And so everybody has, like, the same, if you go through that whole treatment cycle, like, sure. I will say, like, getting hands on somebody more tends to speed up the healing process, whether that is because, like, you're able to treat them, they're able to relax, whatever it might be. I think that's why pro athletes heal up so quick, but it's also insanely cost prohibitive. So if you're not making a shit ton of money like these pro athletes are, like, you're probably not seeing me twice a day for, 2-3 times a week to get better. Right. So I think that's the other tricky thing as well. But then I also understand it from the business side of things, like, you want recurring revenue. That's also why you tell people, 3 times a week for however many weeks, and then 2 times a week or whatever it might be. General rule of thumb I tell people is, if somebody says, hey, let's do a trial of care twice a week for 3 to 6 weeks or something like that, then I'm like, okay, they're probably not full of shit, because they're going to reevaluate probably within 3 to 4 weeks and tell you brutally honest, hey, this is working or it's not working.
So when you're working with somebody in that rehab perspective, you have a big toolbox, right? And the way I like to explain this is, if you look at like a mechanic's toolbox, one of the big ones with all the shelves and all the other shit, there's a whole lot of tools in there, probably more tools than they're ever going to need. But in the top drawer, there's like a screwdriver or hammer. There's like the basic shit, right? Yeah. So from that practitioner standpoint, what are those basic tools?
For me,
for you, but I think it will apply in general to help people find the best people to look for if they know what's in the top drawer and what they pull out the most.
I think any form of manual therapy paired with a bit of rehab, right? I think that's the biggest thing. If you can go to somebody and whether they adjust you, whether they do massage, whether they needle, whatever they like to do, and then they give you some drills to load it up to actually make it stick, then I think that person actually knows what the fuck they're doing. But if you're just coming in, you're getting cracked and they're like, all right, see you 2 days later. That's not going to, I mean, that might work. Like if you're, you know, in an acute thing where your back just feels tight or you're jammed up, like sure, that might help it and loosen it back up. But I'd prefer someone to have drills to then load it. So then we can keep progressing what we need to do.
So what does jammed up actually mean? Like if somebody feels that they have to go see the chiropractor, what is actually going on?
Usually what you're getting is like some type of spasm in the area. Like the most common one that people think of is like, I can't turn my neck, right? Everybody has that at one point in their life where they sleep funny and then they can't move their head. And what that is the muscles that are laying over top the facets, like of the spine, are just kind of locked in place and they have an acute spasm in that area. And then you go to turn your head and it's like, okay, I can't move this thing. Right. And that one's the most notable thing for everybody. But sometimes you have that in your low back where you're just like, I feel like I can't get into my hip or something like that. And that's where, you know, manual muscle work, needling, adjustments, all that stuff works great because all you're trying to do is just take away that spasm of the muscle.
Mm-hmm. Then if it keeps coming, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, but then if it keeps coming back, obviously there's a bigger issue at hand and we need to load a little bit differently. This is one of the lectures I gave at Swiss when you guys were sponsoring it. Facet-driven syndrome within powerlifters, because all you do is you tuck your, you know, you're tucking your chin, you're driving your neck down into the bench, but you're also pinching back the shoulder blades. So you're making the spine almost compacted and as stiff as possible at the base of your neck. So eventually you're just going to piss off those facets over time. And what starts to happen, hallmark facet pain starts out as just like globalized neck stiffness. And then it kind of turns into like, okay, the inside of my shoulder blade is kind of tight. And then next thing I know, like I could just get this random dull ache across my rotator cuff. And if it's really bad, it starts to shoot down my arm. All right. And so if you look at that, a lot of power lifters have that. Like they have the nagging inside of the shoulder blade. They have the super stiff base of the neck. They have this nondescript rotator cuff pain that doesn't respond to any rotator cuff drills. And so the way that I fix that is actually just taking your chin the opposite way or just trying to give you more upper back, like thoracic extension, if you want to put it in fancy terms. And that could just be anything chest supported, like put you on a T-bar row, hang you over top and just let it pull you and open, tuck your chin down, breathe. It should feel like it's tearing. That's how you know you're getting some movement back into that area. I might go hook lying bench press, like as a accessory based work, just to kind of prevent you from choking everything down and back. And so that will start to open up some motion into those areas. You know, powell raises, anything to really get you across to then get into that thoracic extension, because then that takes the pressure off your neck. And now you're not getting that jammed up response. That's where the load comes into play.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
because doing an adjustment would feel good for maybe a
Yeah.
day or two, and then you're going to train. It's going to get jammed up ready.
well, those same things happen with the lifters if they're benching
Mm-hmm.
because of how they're positioning themselves on the bench, and
Yep.
if they're deadlifting correctly,
Yep, same
you
thing.
know how they're pulling that. So it's just taking that movement and then doing the opposite of it.
Yeah.
In the greatest range of motion that you possibly can.
Yeah. And that's kind of how I think of accessory work a lot of the time. If I'm, you know, programming some rehab or training some athletes, the main lifts are what's meant to get you strong in the sport that you need to be in. But then your accessory work is to give you what you just robbed of yourself throughout your main lifts, which is counterintuitive a lot of times because you want your accessory works to complement your main lift. But in my realm, lifting isn't their main job.
Mm-hmm.
That's why it's going to be different. But I'm trying to keep them as healthy as possible. So it'd be okay to throw in a microcycle within powerlifting if I'm far enough away from comp to do that.
Or the end movements of the day to
Yeah.
be able to do that. Because if you look at most of the strength sports, those accessory movements are building the weak points or whatever those main movements are,
True.
but basically still establishing the same motor pattern of that main movement, which is just compounding.
Yeah.
You know, if we're using what you're talking about, and I have a chest supported row put in there, right? It's put in there to help develop that upper back to be able to keep that chin in the position it's supposed to be in
Yep.
when they're squatting. So basically just reinforcing the same stuff, which is just compounding the issue,
Yeah.
right? That if nothing's in there to be able to reverse that,
Yeah.
or not reverse, to bring it back to base.
Yeah. Mitigate it.
Mitigate, better word, mitigate. Then I can see where that should be in there in some capacity, kind of at all time.
Yeah. Yeah. And I try to keep that in with a lot of the people, like at least have like a drill a day where it's going to be, we're going to try and load it up and put you in these awkward positions. Like it's going to be tough because it doesn't feel like you're really generating a lot of transfer, or you're getting super strong into this lift because it's designed to make you almost fail, but it's going to make your body feel that much better afterwards.
Well, I think it's an easy sell because I can think of countless people that they're trying to fix the shoulder issue. I don't think it's the shoulder.
Yeah.
I think it's what you just described. Right. So they're doing all these different things to be able to help because it's not working.
Yeah.
Like if you've been trying to fix that shoulder issue for a year with the rotator cuff movements and all this other stuff, and it's still there, I got news for you. It's not.
Yeah. And if you look up the pain referral pattern of a cervical facet, I mean, it lays it out perfectly. Like you'll see it, like the graph of it, how like the pain generator of what it would look like. I mean, it literally base and neck runs down the inside of the shoulder blade. It'll feel like a knot on the inside of your shoulder blade. And then all of a sudden, then it covers out to here too. And that's pretty much every like lifter's how they describe it. They're like, I feel this knot on the inside of my shoulder blade. I try and dig it out. It feels good for a little bit. And then it feels like shit. And then my shoulder starts to get real achy too, as I keep benching, and it's not getting any better. You just ask them, does it feel better when you do dumbbell rows or whatever type of row that you're doing where you're not trying to pin the shoulder blade back? And they're like, yeah, it feels really good. Okay, then I know we're going to need some rounding out in the thoracic spine, but also we can just do a lot of single arm work where the other arm's held out, because now I'm not pinching down. So even if I'm doing accessory work, if I come down on this one's back, but this one's up, I'm technically not pinching all the way back and narrowing that facet anymore. So that's another way to attack it.
Yeah. No, there's actually two people I'm thinking of right now. Because I know how to, from my own experience, I know how to make it not hurt the rest of the day. Yeah. Like lay on a billiard ball, put it on it hurts like a bitch, right?
Yeah.
But at least you can find the hot spots and be able to dig into all that.
Yeah.
But it's a Band-Aid, right? It's just making it so you can mow the lawn fucking later.
Yeah.
It's not actually, it's a word I'm looking for, decompressing.
Yeah, almost just taking pressure off of that area. That's the biggest thing because that's your only strategy. So every time you go to load your shoulder just thinks, I got to immediately suck back my shoulder blade to load my shoulder itself.
Yes.
And the sign of a really healthy joint is, can I load it independently of the joint next to it? Meaning, like, if you ever talk to somebody in a car accident, when they go to turn their head, they turn their shoulders with it too.
Oh God, I know lifters.
Yeah, lifters do the same shit. And it's because you've glued the joint together. We call that a joint freezing strategy. A joint freeing strategy would be, can I turn my head one way and then turn my chest the other way? Can I rotate joints separately? And it's really obvious in the neck, not as obvious in the hip. But I use it's called like a shoe tie test, where I literally I'm sitting in a chair like this. I lean my chest over top of my leg and I bend down to tie my shoe. If my knee shoots out to the side real far, then I know that hip is fucked, because it's essentially glued to my low back. Because if I try and bend forward, my femur should stay still as my hip, is rotating out the other way.
So then what would be the strategies for the hip? Because the hip will play into the low back too.
Yeah. Well, then it goes back to what we first talked about before, though. How fucked up is that structure? Have we caught it early enough to restore the function, or am I too late into the game? Do I just bury it harder into that compensation?
Well, either way, there'd be a middle ground of just mitigate.
There would a little bit, but it's tough to train that middle ground because you're right. You're pretty much just right where you're already at.
Yeah.
And so I try to throw in a couple of drills here and there for it. And if you respond to it, then I know, okay, we can keep running with this. But if I throw these in, you're like, wow, my back feels really shit under a bar now. Or like my adductor is killing me. And I'm like, okay, we probably can't use this type of technique. We're just going to have to bury you harder into your compensation.
So then what would be that strategy if it's off season and they can pull away?
If they can. So that's where we'll just start utilizing like a lot of internal rotation by stuff like trying to actually load our adductor, load our oblique. So whether that be Copenhagen's, certain planks like from the groin, training up the lateral aspect of the hip, a lot of like oblique work, or whether you want to think of it as like PRI or whatever these 3-letter acronyms are for all these training platforms are now, but essentially rotating over top of that hip and then doing a Bulgarian. Or whatever it might be. It's just trying to disassociate the joints and load these tissues. Now, the other thing is you have to find out, do the other tissues around it allow it to then function the way that it should? Like my hip might be shot because my knee can't accept the load, so it's just going to lock and then shoot out to the side. And so is it really, that's what I ran into the other day with this Ohio State football player. It's not so much like, yes, his hamstring's fucked up, but he had an ACL surgery in the past and he actually doesn't have full flexion of that knee. So that hamstring is always going and his quad is super dog shit. And so he's always just got this, super tight hammy, super tight quad. And now that side of his back hurts. And now he's almost catching like a sports hernia because if I can't drive out from my hip, I'm just going to pop my chest up.
Yeah. That's kind of fucked for him, but that's fun for you.
Yeah. It's
right?
a good thing.
Because you got to really dig.
Yeah. And what's interesting though, is like that exact pattern of like QL being super tight, outside of the hip being super tight, groin being super fucked, oblique being super fucked. You see it predominantly in two sports, powerlifting and hockey.
So why in football?
Football, you will see.
So why not? Why does he have it? Why?
Well, he has it just probably because of that knee being fucked up. Because he can't hold his knee still.
Yeah.
So the knee's shooting back, which makes him pop through with his hip and his. But in whether it's in like powerlifting or hockey, what do? Like hockey, you can't push straight into the floor. You have to turn your foot out and spread. What's the cue that we always give within powerlifting?
Oh God, it was years ago. I saw
spread the floor.
I don't know if it was a study or an article or whatever, but it was x-rays of like retired NHL players.
Oh,
and like
fucked.
all their hips looked like they needed to be replaced, but none of them really needed to be replaced. Yeah. That's just how they adapted.
Yeah. That's a natural adaptation that they go through within like adolescence. That's one of the biggest determining factors is how much time you spend on the ice will determine how bad your FAI is in your hip when you play hockey. Because it's as you're growing, that's when the hip starts to remodel. And that's usually the time they spend the most amount of time skating because they're trying to prep for juniors or whatever else they're going into.
The reason I know this is because I was looking through, before I had the first hip replaced, I'm looking at all that. I'm like, man, their hips are way worse than mine. I don't need it replaced.
Yep.
And so I was trying to justify,
yeah,
based upon that. And it's like, well, no, they've been doing this repetitively
for a long, long time. So they've made everything strong. But that's also a hotly debated topic within training hockey players. How much internal rotation do I train knowing that it's good for their hip health and for their adductor to abductor ratios, like strength wise, but also knowing if I do too much, I'm going to piss off that FAI and I could really fuck them up.
That's dicey in that sport, man, because their off season's like what, 3 weeks?
No, theirs is actually fairly long. Like theirs is a few months. So if they're not playing like in the playoffs. And so like
there's like what, all but 5 teams make it to the playoffs anymore?
Yeah, there's a fair amount of teams that are within that playoff structure. But for a lot of them, like they're going to usually take like the first 2 weeks to do jack shit and just go vacation and do some fun stuff. And then they'll come in, but like it's hit or miss. Like some guys really like to lift and then other guys just want to live on the ice and do their skill work. Like,
so they have enough time.
They have the time.
Okay.
Yeah. It's like, are they just going to do it? That's the biggest thing. And you'll find, I mean, this is with all in pro sports. Like you're going to have athletes that just really want to do the sport and you're going to have athletes that love the training process outside the sport. And so that's where it's hard to get through to them. Like, okay, this is very important. So you don't fuck yourself up so you can play really well.
Well, I would think that you got to prioritize. Like if they're coming to you, obviously they give a fuck, right? Or they wouldn't be coming to you, right? So, but you have to prioritize what's most important to least important because that's not what they really want to do.
Yeah. I think that's a really big thing. Just training athletes in general is like what might be important to me, they might not give a shit about.
Right. Well, they don't.
Yeah, they usually don't.
Actually, they shouldn't, right?
Yeah.
They should care more about their sports skill.
Yeah, and that's the biggest thing is like be a PhD in your sport, not in the weight room. And so, but also at the same, I've seen a very interesting trend within the industry. So like when I was growing up, again, like the only thing to really read was like T Nation and Elite, and then like YouTube videos of Louis. That was all that was out there. And so everybody came from this like heavy strength training background and it was like, this is awesome. And now we've seen like this gradual change to it's like, no one really gives a shit about the weight room. Like let's do like play around with some sports specific, like slapdick shit. And then we don't need to get them super strong. We just need to make them really, really good on the field. And it's like, yes, sport performance has gone up, but so has injury rates. I think it's a balance between the two. Like we need to view the weight room almost as building armor. Like, yes, you will get stronger, but it's also going to make you a little bit more resilient, but you still need to do all your shit for your sport. And I think like we've gone from one extreme of just like everybody needs to be fuck off strong and we're beating the shit out of you in the weight room to now like nobody's really training hard in the weight room and it's all skill-based work on the field.
Hey guys, I just wanted to take a moment because we do read the comments and one of them that keeps popping up more frequently than not is I can't believe this video doesn't get more views. Take a minute to subscribe, leave a comment, and share. It really does help.
Well, the injury rate is it's an interesting one because if they're bigger, faster, and stronger, then wouldn't you suspect that the injury rate's it's not gonna go down?
Yeah.
Right. It's gonna at least be the same, maybe even be higher because now the force.
Yeah. And that's where I think it also comes down to, I've talked about this in the past, but building workhorses versus racehorses. Like everything is so finely tuned that you don't see as much GPP, right? Like they go into their off-season training with whoever their coach is, and it's all just like highly specialized prep work for their specific position, right? It's not like there's no base building anymore. And so when they get into season, it's not like they're base building at all. Like they're just doing the lifts to kind of stay healthy and do what their team told them to do. And so none of these guys have like a robust base anymore, but that's also why their outputs are so high, because they're not spending as much time. GPP, if they did enough of it, it might bring some of that force production down just because they're allocating the resources to something else. But now they're like baseball players, right? Like now we got a shit ton of guys that throw all over 100. All of them, are injured a lot of the time. Right? Guys back in the day could throw all day long at like upper 80s to low 90s, and they were never hurt, and they threw a shit ton of innings. So it's a trade-off that we have now. Like you're creating that much more force, but now we're also, not able to sustain it either. And so I think we kind of need to bridge our way back into bringing more GPP into what we're doing.
Well, it would only make sense because GPP outside of general physical preparedness, outside of what most people would think, and this is not what we're saying, but most people would think just replace or put it on top of, what they're doing, which is just adding more work.
Yeah, it's more stress.
Right. But if we forget about what it's actually doing, if it's taken the SPP and reducing that, which for a lot of the athletes is still foot contact, and every foot contact is their body weight force into the ground. If we reduce that by 20% and they don't do anything, right? Yeah. They're probably still going to have a better base if they just didn't do anything. But if we do this GPP work, let's just say the GPP work doesn't do what we say it's going to do. Yeah. That reduction during that short period of time will do what we say it's going to do because it's reducing the force.
Yeah, it's reducing the overall load of all this
the overall load of all that stuff. But if we're taking that and putting it to develop these base motor abilities, how would it not help? Yeah. Some of these things are just so common sense that it blows my mind.
Yeah. But athletes are always thinking like, I just need to keep playing. I just need to keep doing the thing. And I talked to one of the guys the other day about it. You've been skating since you were in Timbits, probably like 4 years old, right? And you've been playing in the league now for 6 years. You're not magically going to forget how to fucking skate. Like it's okay to take a month off of the ice and just do some dry ground work. And then we can get back into skating, and you're actually going to feel pretty good because we're now fixing all the shit that you've been fucking up just by skating all the time. You haven't given yourself a chance to fix it.
This is funny as fuck to me because you can just think of the number of times you've heard this. They pull a muscle so they can't train, right? But then whatever their next season is or whatever it is, their brag and their coach's brag is, look at how fucking good this was the best season he ever had. Yeah. And he just tore this in the off season. Yeah. Kind of like imagine how good he would have been had he not tore it. Yeah. I'm like, well, because he tore it, he actually got the rest. Yeah. Right. Or, this flu or this long COVID or whatever just fucked me all up. But now 6 months later, I'm way fucking, so it's like a badge of honor. Yeah. That it's like, no, you dumb fuck, you deloaded, during this time period and just did a minimal effective dose or whatever it was. Yeah. And then you wonder why you're better now. You see, the stories are everywhere.
Like I see that so much with the fighters, especially, when I started training some of the guys early on, they would first come to me. I use an exponential taper. So, we're drastically cutting volume like a week and a half out to the point where we're not doing usually shit because they also have to fly to where they're going and doing some of the stuff. So it's like their last lifting day might be like a week and a half out from their fight. And then they might do like a little bit of like med ball or plyo work, whatever we need to do to kind of re-energize the system wherever they're going. And then we also pull away at a lot of the conditioning too. And I'm like, I might just want you to run like a couple sled sprints or a couple bike sprints when you get to the hotel of wherever you're going to be, at for weigh-ins. That's about it. And the guys were like, well, what, should anybody be training hard up until the fight? I'm like, fuck no. If you can't express all the qualities that we've been training for the last, 8-week, 12-week camp, if you can't express them now, what is an extra day or two of training really going to improve? Nothing. Like, take the time to rest, let those qualities accumulate so that you can actually express them. And people, it's like once they realize in that click, then they're like, oh fuck, I feel really fresh going into fight night. I'm like, yeah, no shit.
Yeah.
You actually gave yourself a little bit of time to recover. Plus you're weight cutting. Like you have some and you're traveling. Like you have so much stress, media day, all this shit.
One of the interesting, because they're still going to go back to training the way that they did, because that's their condition so far for that. One of the things that I'll see in the powerlifting side a lot of times is, let's say it's off season or a transition phase before a peak phase. And maybe it is an injury. Maybe it's just they're busy because of work or whatever it's going to be, but they got to really pull back on a lot of things. So they just do the main thing, get in, get out. And then the strength goes way up and they're like, oh, fuck. And then they come to this realization, like, this is all I need to do. So then that's all they ever do. Yeah. And what they did was they did like a fake peak. Like they peaked without knowing that that's what they were doing. And then they think that that's the solution, because typically what will happen months and months later is their work capacity will fall and they won't understand why, because they're in this peaking state, this reduced volume state for this long period of time. And now they suck and they can't figure out why, because they thought they found the holy grail of like, oh my God, all I have to do is this, and this. Yeah. Where I'm sure you're never going to see that in the fighting world.
It happens because I'll have some guys. So if they're not at a very high level yet, say they're not competing in a major organization, they're going to try and take as many fights as they can. And so they might have like a fight, and then 4 weeks later, if like, you know, they're medically cleared and all that stuff, they'll fight again in 4 weeks.
So that's reducing their volume.
Yeah, that drastically reduced. Because I have one guy who I've worked with probably like the last year, and that's what I had to harp on him big time, because he would be taking fight. He'd be fighting like 8 times a year, 8-9 times a year. I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, give yourself a little bit of time to rest so we can actually train. And so for the last camp that we had on him, we put a fair bit of size and strength and some cardio on him, and he was like, okay, yeah, I feel really fucking good. And I'm like,
I get it now.
Yeah, he's like, yeah, I fully understand it. And the other thing is with them, it's a lot of it's pulling back. Like these guys are they're used to just, you know, it's like a wrestling mentality. Just grind, beat yourself into the ground, like badge of honor for that stuff. And I'm like, no. Like keep the main thing. Like just be really good at fighting. Like I don't really give a fuck what your squat, your bench or whatever is, you know, I want it to go up, but I don't really give a shit what it's at. And so we harp very heavily on a lot of that stuff. It's like, keep the main thing, like let your training just be a nice complement to what you're doing.
Were there any topics you wanted to go over I didn't bring up?
Shit, maybe we'd be here for another 5 hours. Yeah, I would say HRV might be a fun one.
Yeah, you have that now. You tapped on it a little bit. Let's expand on it.
HRV might be a fun one because it's almost like shrouded in mystery. Like we talk about it, but nobody really knows what the fuck they're talking about.
Well, the first thing to discuss with that is how to determine what it is, because wearables are not always going to be accurate.
Yeah. So that's an interesting fact as well. So I remember when HRV first came out, was like, when I really first came across it was Omega Wave. Like that was really the only thing that was,
wow.
Yeah, that was a long time ago.
That's like 20 grand.
Yeah. And that's why nobody had them.
Yeah.
But I remember that was kind of like the first time I came across it. And then again, like nobody could afford it. Somebody was using it. And then on the consumer level, we realized like, oh, we don't have to use frequency-based domains. Like we can use time-based domains. So you can study HRV in frequency, whether that's like low frequency versus high frequencies. Well, you can study it from time domains, which is what we use on the consumer level. So we use the RMSSD, which is just a mathematical equation to calculate what your HRV is. And it's done in a super short time period, usually like a minute, 2 minutes max is when they pull that data from. And so it's like on an exponential like algorithm. And then you have longer duration ones. You can do like SDNNs or like P500s. There's a million fucking ways to pull HRV, and they all kind of give you a little bit different idea of what's going on. RMSSD is the one that we use on the commercial pretty much everywhere now. That's the standardized version, I feel like, for the most part. All these companies are using it, whether it's like Aura, Whoop, Garmin, like we all just use that data. Now, the issue you get into is the black box equations. Right? We don't know their algorithms that they're using to then say, because a lot of times they'll give you raw data, but then they'll also give you your readiness score or like whatever your score is for the day. And I'm like, I don't know how the fuck they calculated that. So I don't really trust it. All I care about is the raw data. And so I would say when COVID hit, it got very popular. People were like, HRV, this is great predictor. Like we're going to, look at people's health. Aura was pushing it. Whoop was pushing it really early on. It was great to look at all this stuff. Problem is nobody really is very good at reading HRV, and it's really fucking confusing. And with HRV, in the most ideal scenario, you wake up first in the morning, take a piss, put on like a heart strap, like EKG, and then do a reading, sitting still, right? No drinking water, try not to swallow your saliva. You literally just sit there. And it might take it in like 2 minutes. Ideally, the longer that you go, the more accurate the reading's going to be because I have more sampling points. And so there's not going to be as much noise through the data. If I only take a 1 minute reading and I get a couple of things of like me swallowing, that's going to create a lot of noise. And then my HRV is going to look super wonky. But in an ideal world, you're sitting up because it actually reveals more stress on your body. So this is why we use like sit to stand test for like dysautonomia or like table tilt testing or all these things. And it's because lying on our back, you're going to have parasympathetic saturation. Where do most of these companies take your scores from? During the middle of the night. Where do you do? Laying on your back. So, and I think they built this into their algorithms to kind of show whether they weight the things a little bit. I don't know personally with what Aura or what Whoop is doing or what all the new shit is now, like what they're using, how they weight their scores, whether it's like the first one and the last one or what's really important, or is it like taking continuous ones throughout the night and then averaging them? Don't know what their data is doing on that. But it's a super interesting thing. And then also most people think like high HRV is like the best. Right. And that's not necessarily the case because you could have bulimia and have sky high HRV. Makes no fucking sense. So HRV, I really only give a shit after 30 days. Collect 30 days worth of data and then start showing, and then we'll start making decisions off the trends. And it's because I need to have like a strong baseline of how everything is, because it's a catch-all of everything, not just training stress, your life stress. If you have fucked up vision, that's going to be a stress. If you have high blood pressure, that's going to be a stress. If your heart rate is, in the 90s, like that's a stress. If you have to drive to work and you run into traffic, that's a stress. And so that's why it's really hard to look at it and try and make a lot of training decisions off of it in real time. Like you need these global trends, but you need a shit ton of data to look at it and be like, yes, okay, like we're making the adaptation, or no, we're not making the adaptation. I don't think it's entirely useless at all, but I think like we jumped the gun on it and said like, okay, this is way more important. It's the most important metric. We should base a lot of our shit off of it. And the people who are really good with HRV, whether it's like Marco Altini, Mike T. Nelson, whoever, like they're looking at this stuff and they're like, no, it's way more complex than that. Like you can't jump the gun. It's a phenomenal metric, but you can't jump the gun on it. I think honestly, resting heart rate first thing in the morning is a much better predictor of that day, of like how my training should go than HRV.
I use Fitbit, or Ring, Apple Watch, and I fucking track the shit out of everything. And so I have baselines, but they're never the same. So keep that. They're never the same.
You can't compare across different.
The number of times, and this is where I think it can go south with a lot of people, the number of times the readiness score was low, and it's one of my heavy days. I'm saying, fuck it, doing it anyhow, and it still ends up being a really good day. You can't let that make the decision.
Well, there's a reason for that, because if my readiness score is low, I'm highly sympathetic. Am I going to smash my lift or am I going to shit the bed? I'm usually going to smash my lift. So the days where some guys will come in and they'll be like, hey, my Aura rings or whatever is saying, this thing's fucked up. My readiness score is low, or like my HRV dipped, a few points. I'm like, fuck yeah, we're going to send it today. We're maxing that out, or we're hitting a 3-rep or whatever it might be. Like, I want you to get after it. And they smash the lift. And they're like, what the hell just happened? Like, this happened because you are more in a sympathetic state. It's totally okay. Now, I'm not going to continually do this with you. We might just do it every once in a while to show you like, hey, don't get super caught up on this thing. But that's how that works. Now, the issue I ran into when we were manually taking it is guys were falling back asleep. So they were missing the lift in the morning. I'd be sitting there in the gym and be like, what the fuck, where are you?
Oh,
like I took the reading, it was 2 minutes long, but then I fell asleep because I was tired. I'm like, son of a bitch. So then we started to move away from taking the readings, and then we waited for like something to come out, which would be like an Aura Whoop that would just continually take it throughout the night. And I'm like, at least this is something.
Yeah.
So then we made the switch to that. But yeah, even like the coefficient variant of like HRV, like how much variability just, throughout, tracking it, like that's a bigger predictor for overall health than like how high your HRV might be. Is higher better? kind of like we don't want it to be super low, but there's also age ranges and it's also genetic too.
Well, there's, if you just look at it as extra data points, right? So here's all these extra data points, because you're going to have probably steps in there too. You're going to have a heart rate, HRV, all the other fucking things that they have. But then you have your own training, you know, and how you're scoring that. This was a good session. This was a bad session.
Yeah.
And you can find correlations over time without needing those benchmark numbers.
Right.
That's kind of where I'm going with this.
I think like we've managed to take out, call it the interoception. Like we've lost the ability to find out, how do you feel? If I can shake someone's hand, like I know you're probably feeling pretty good for the day, right? And they give me a nice strong squeeze. But if I shake your hand and it's like a limp dick shake, you're probably not going to have a great training day, right? Yeah. And so we've lost almost that ability to kind of say like how we are for the day. It's almost like I need this wearable to show me where I'm at. And the problem is, and whether we get into force plate testing or I can rant on that shit for days, because I'm also seeing a lot of stuff where what they were telling us is not what's making sense. Like somebody could be within 10% side to side on a force plate or on a Nord board, and all of a sudden like they pop a hammy, but the person that's 30% different is totally fine. You're like, that doesn't make any sense, right? It's like they said you need to be within 10%. Your hamstring's far safer. It's like, well, obviously not. The person just popped a hammy. And the other thing is, if that other person, if that, was a 30% discrepancy, if I just stopped training their good hammy, it would get weaker and then it would get within 10%. Do you think that athlete's going to be safer?
No.
Probably not, right? So then that even fucks with the thinking that we do have. So like, is the percentage a big deal? Like, is some of this stuff, are we testing too much and losing the ability for our athletes to know how they truly feel? And again, like the readiness is just as much physiological as it is psychological. So going back into HRV, like HRV is a systemic, like overall predictor. So I could have a hard squat workout, but I recovered really well from it. So my HRV could be going up. My HRV could be going up and my heart rate could be maybe a little bit high because of the hard training, but my HRV went up because it's adapting to it. But on the peripheral level, if I use near-infrared spectroscopy, which is like where you shine a laser into the muscle cell and you look at like how much oxygen is going from, the capillary down into the muscle cell and how much can I extract from it, you might see an entirely different story. You might see that muscle is pretty fucked up, but your HRV might look great. So it's a systemic predictor and not necessarily a peripheral predictor. And that's like a whole another ball game that you can get into. I mean, that's like an hour-long lecture that I give on conditioning. Like that's why people come to me, is for the cardio aspect of things.
Well, it sounds like this all boils back to there's art and science of coaching.
Yep.
It boils back to the art of the coaching and you being able to recognize the athlete's state of readiness, through the handshake or how they walk through the door.
Yeah.
And then assess through their program, their warm up or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Where they are for that day.
Yeah. The numbers are really just like a flag. Like if something's super off, then I'll be like, hey, I got to go talk to this person, But if I'm like continually talking to this person and the numbers are coming up a little bit weird, I'm like, one, are you even filling out the questionnaire properly, or like even wearing your ring properly or whatever? And then two, I'm like, okay, like maybe there's some other habits that we need to address outside of lifting, whether it's sleep, nutrition. So that's why it's easy sometimes to look at the data, because you can catch some low hanging fruit. You could also just fucking ask the person that too.
Yes. Well, exactly. Well, I think there's over reliance on the data in many sectors.
Yeah.
To where they're losing the art of being able to read and speak to people to know what their state of readiness is.
Yeah.
And where they are, and how they're supposed to feel during certain blocks of training.
Yeah. There's a book called Tyranny of Metrics, and one of the phenomenal strength coaches, he's actually here in Columbus, Anthony Donskov. Dr. Donskov. He's got his PhD now. So he has a phenomenal strength and conditioning course on hockey where he talks about biomechanics and training and all this stuff. And then in one of his things in that course is actually the Tyranny of Metrics. He's like, we're collecting all this data, and is like, is it actually actionable? Who knows? We might be collecting all this data and we don't really see a whole lot.
Interesting.
Or it's almost like we're trying to draw connections from something that isn't there.
Interesting. What would be the best way people can find you, to kind of wrap this up?
I'm probably a little bit more active on Instagram now that I'm being forced to. So that's probably the easiest way to get a hold of me.
Would your website be the best?
Yeah, you can also email me. Like I'm actually fairly responsive to emails because it pops up right away on my phone. So like emails are a great way. yeah, if people ever have questions or want to, nerd out about some of this stuff, like I'm happy to talk about these things. I think we're in the age, I imagine it's the same as like how you came up and how I came up is like you reached out to a coach and that coach actually took their time to talk to you. It wasn't like, hey, pay me $500 and fly out here for this one thing. So if you showed like a genuine interest in something and you really wanted to learn, like they would take the time. And I feel like that's kind of gone by the wayside now. And it's like, I'd like to give back to the people who gave to me. And
That's great.
Yeah, I want to just keep that going.
All right. We'll put all your info in the bio. You have any final thoughts?
I think at the end of the day, you still got to train hard with all the data, whether it's your rehab, whatever it's doing, do it with fucking intensity. I think we've just completely lost the plot, and it's like we're shooting for optimal. Like there's no such fucking thing as optimal. Like give it the right intensity, know when to push, know when to pull, have a good coach that's, able to do that for you. But like you still got to show up and do the work.
Which is the definition of optimal means that there's something higher and there's something lower.
Yeah.
So the only way you can anchor optimal is to tap something higher and to tap something lower.
Yeah.
Which is,
it's that story of, now that we know it's Icarus, but
it's
that story of Icarus. Like how hard can I truly push before I break?
Yeah.
And most people, like a lot of people, like the central governor is their brain. Sometimes they're not limited peripherally, they're limited centrally by their brain. The brain just says, fuck it, shut it down.
All right. Well, thank you for coming out.
Yeah.
And with that, we're done.